civil war waging for the last 2 years. And those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the channel crossing as the dangerous bit. But actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many, many tens of kilometers have to be covered on foot by these migrants. And as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
.602, this is Talk, the home of common sense. I'm Mark Dolan. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. A happy new year to each and every one of you. Breaking this morning, nightclub owners have been interviewed by police and could face manslaughter charges as the Swiss tragedy sees 40 dead and over 100 badly injured. We've got the inside story. Reform UK vote to jail grooming gang rapists for life. Meanwhile, Farage wins the farmers' vote. We'll get reaction. And an Islamist killer wins a £250,000 battle over his human rights. But does anyone care about the human rights of foreign criminals? Plus, just how bad is the weather going to get? I found the roads very icy this morning on my little 125 moped. What's the situation where you are? Let me know. We're going to speak to a top meteorologist about whether the days ahead will see snow and further ice. How long is it going to take for the trains to stop, for the buses to go on strike? We can't handle, can we, a bit of cold weather? Also, Keir Starmer's plan to smash the gangs lies in tatters. Will Labour ever stop the boats? Plus, a Mark Dolan show exclusive. We're looking at the outrageous exploitation of sick note culture. So is it time to call time on sick notes handed out by GPs like confetti? Should we call time on sick note culture? Have you got stories of the abuse of this system? Let me know. My priority for the next 4 hours is to get your opinions on the national television and radio airwaves. My phone number is 0344 499 1000. And I'm delighted to say that directing our TV output today is the one and only Charlie. So if you want to watch the show, just head over to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. You can decide whether or not I need a January haircut. Plus, the executive producer of the show, the one and only Dean Spencer. We've got some big stories bubbling away for the weekend. Pressing the buttons, Matthew with a guest appearance. Looking forward to that. And taking your calls. 0344 499 1000 is the fabulous Tommy. So give him a call now. 2 big questions for you. Will Labour ever stop the boats? And Should we call time on Sick Note Culture? I want your stories. Give me the inside track. And what's the weather like where you are? 0344 499 1000, as the saying goes. Let's talk. Well, it's fantastic to be back, and I hope you had a great Christmas, and I do wish each and every one of you every blessing for a healthy, prosperous and happy new year. It is great to be back, and I'm delighted to say, as of next weekend, this show becomes Talk Breakfast Friday, Saturday and Sunday. You got JK, the king of talk, Jeremy Kyle, from Monday to Thursday. I'll take over Friday, Saturday and Sunday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. This is not a drill. And I'll be looking forward to keeping you entertained, informed, stimulated. And this show is nothing without you, so do join the conversation. By the way, we love the voice notes. Dean Spencer and I had a 2-hour meeting this morning. OK, I am literally, you could peel me off the ceiling. That's how much coffee I've had. And the reason we've had a meeting is to talk about giving you the best possible breakfast show in the country. And one thing that we love the calls. Oh, my goodness. By Cokie, do we love the calls. But also, we love the voice notes as well, because a lot of you are very busy. OK, you're at the tail end of a work shift or on your way to work or getting the kids ready for school. Or, of course, it's the weekend now, so you'll be doing other stuff, off to the DIY centre. Whatever you're doing, many of you are too busy to call and you leave voice notes. And what that involves is calling 0344 499 1000. You leave a message and then we put that on the national television and radio airwaves. Nadia has messaged the show. Yay! The show I've been waiting for. Mark Dolan. Only positive thing about waking up so early. Well, listen, thank you so much for that, Nadia. We're delighted to have you. Sean in Gloucester, good morning and Happy New Year, Mark. Thank you for bringing common sense to us throughout 2025 and Happy New Year to you. Every day, Keith Stalin and his party of lying idiots do something else to destroy democracy and our country. He's doing his best to rejoin the EU, letting dangerous terrorists in, building council houses for illegal immigrants. Rachel Thieves on about more tax rises to fill another fictitious black hole. Lammy, enough said. The list is endless. We need to get them out now. This country is on life support. And Ed Milliprat is turning the power off. Sean in Gloucester, I've got an idea, Sean, right? I don't think we're going to bother, Dean, with Dolan's dispatch in 2026. I'm just going to read Sean's texts because they're far better written, much funnier and always on point. Sean, keep them coming. I think we've got a voice note from Kate. So get that ready for me if you can, Matt. Unless it's an X-rated drunken rant, but I doubt coming from Kate it will be because she's a rock of sense. Listen, folks, let's get to some quick front pages if we can. Oh, my goodness. So should we smash in? Let's smash in already with a voice note. Here we go.
Happy New Year. So glad to have you keep me company this morning. I'm on a 6-hour drive from Hastings back to the Wirral. All the best, mate. Looking forward to the show. Bye.
Oh, what a fabulous lady you are, Kate. That definitely wasn't a drunken rant. That was a lovely, kind message. And what I'm going to do this year in 2026 is to try to make sense of this crazy world. When stuff is mad and wrong, such as not policing our borders, thinking that if you wear a dress and you're a bloke that suddenly you're a woman, if you think that with 1% global emissions we should destroy our economy and our industry with net zero, which is a Trojan horse for socialism, I'm going to call all of that out. Sometimes I'll be wrong, sometimes I'll be right. And what I want you to do as my audience is to crack the whip with me, and you're going to call, you're going to text, leave a voice note when you disagree, when you agree. But I just make one sworn promise to you, which is that I will interpret the world as I see it, without an agenda, without tribal politics. If stuff makes no sense, if stuff seems wrong, I will say that. I'll use my platform to call that out. And I don't care how many people are upset about it. I don't care how many friends I lose, because in the end, I can sleep at night knowing that I'm authentic and I say what I really think. There you go. That's what I'll try to do, and you're going to be part of that conversation, and we'll have a laugh as well. The Daily Mirror, New Year party inferno, heartbreaking. Families cling to hope in search for missing teens. Of course, this is the tragedy at a nightclub in a Swiss ski resort, which has seen 40 dead and over 100 badly injured. Weekend, tougher Brexit border checks to trigger delays as Portugal U-turns over queue chaos. Growing concern over impact of post-EU travel checks for UK tourists, and Brexit battle looms for Starmer as rivals plot softer deal. The Times newspaper, ex-pupil at UK school among ski bar missing. Daily Mail, girl from UK school missing in Swiss fire. A schoolgirl educated in Britain is among dozens missing following the Swiss ski bar inferno that killed. Now listen, we're getting a latest figure here, because the figure I had and I've got from the Times is at least 40 people, but the figure unsubstantiated from the Mail is 47, which would make it one of the greatest tragedies to befall Switzerland in its history. The Sun newspaper, Brit schoolgirl among missing, start of the inferno, moment sparkler ignited blaze that killed at least 40. Can we have a conversation about these sparklers and these flamethrowers and other so-called entertainment devices? I've always hated them. I don't want to be Dean Spencer, wise after the event. I've always hated sparklers. I'm not that much of a fan of fireworks either, but the idea that anything incendiary could be inside of a building is truly shocking to me. The Daily Telegraph, Trump set to step in over Iran protests. Iranian security forces opened fire on protesters last night, despite a threat from Donald Trump to intervene in the rapidly spreading unrest. Lamy wants teenagers to sign up as magistrates. And how about this? Whitty, drink bleach and water in blackouts. What is going on here? Mixing a small dose of bleach with dirty water and drinking low-alcohol beers are among Sir Chris Whitty's tips on how to survive a national blackout. Guidance was published last month as part of planning for emergencies. Yeah, I might actually have a... Could you do me, Dean, a large bleach and tonic this morning, because I could do with a livener. Can I just tell you, everyone, that I'm joking, and don't try that at home. The Daily Express, get a grip on social care crisis. A crisis in social care meant that more than 6,000 people died as they waited to hear if they would be given urgently needed help. And The Guardian, sparklers started Swiss bar fire that took 40 lives. First time that I've ever agreed with a headline in The Guardian. Someone I always agree with, I mean, it's the most outrageous echo chamber, is the comic genius and rock of sense, Paul Cox, who joins us in the studio. Morning, Paul.
Good morning, Mark.
Happy New Year, big man.
Happy New Year. And it's the Mark Dolan breakfast show, the first of 2026. Here we go, Mark. This is going to be great, isn't it?
I feel the hand of history on my shoulders.
I'm sure you do.
And I will
Consensually,
say,
I hope.
just a bit. We've had a drink. Behave yourself. I will say that it's a great honour. It's actually an honour to be back at the Home of Common Sense, and it's my spiritual home. And I want to thank the audience and the management for having me. And all I can do is I'll give it 177%. What we don't lack, Paul, is material, is stories, is news. I will get to Sir Keir Starmer's pledge to smash the gangs, which has seen 70,000 people enter the country illegally since he became Prime Minister. So it hasn't worked. Will Labour ever stop the boats? I also want to have a look at our breakfast exclusive expose of Sick Note Britain. But we do need to start with a tragedy that has befallen the good folk of Switzerland. This is a bar, a nightclub at a very premium ski resort. And there are various figures now of how many have died, but in excess of 40. This is an unimaginable tragedy.
Yes, it is devastatingly sad news. It would be sad anyway, but given the age of the people involved, you can see on the front of the Mirror today that they're all teenagers, 15, 16-year-olds. I've got a daughter of a similar age to that. I can't imagine, A, what those kids must have gone through on that night, and B, what their parents are going through now. For me, that would be a living hell. My thoughts and prayers are with them all for what they're worth. But when we look in the cold light of day at what happened, you can't help but immediately believe a lot of it was avoidable.
This is the thing. These devices, nothing sparkly or lit, should be certainly in the basement of a nightclub.
No, it looked like the ceiling material that adorned the bar area was immediately flammable. That surprises me. The sparklers, well, I don't know how often they'd used them, but it's not the sort of thing that's conducive with that type of environment. The other thing that sadly stood out for me was this huge cultural shift between our generation and this generation, and that's that they all stood around and filmed it.
Yes.
Which is why and took photographs, which is why we can now comment on it so accurately. But I would hazard a guess. and I take no glee in this. This is why many of them would have died, because they stood there too long.
Most definitely, and I think these poor youngsters didn't realise the gravity of the situation as the flames began.
No, I don't. And you know, we're reporting on this. We're talking about this, so we have to be honest. But the last thing I want to do is blame these kids in any way, shape or form.
Well, to them it will have been a spectacle, and they won't have known the magnitude of what was happening.
No, quite obviously, and how good they have done. But
well, that's the funny thing about fire, because when you get a little breakout, it is sort of like, oh look, you know, the table, you know, the food's caught fire or the table's caught fire. You know, you get people with, you know, that flaming dish that you can get where I just saw it actually before this happened, a viral video of a mum that had the baked Alaska with the booze on top, and she lit it and then it spilled onto the table, and it was just a kind of a funny viral video.
I saw that, yeah.
But you saw that as well.
Did,
must have been doing the rounds. And that was sort of amusing, and you know, that's how this might have been processed in the first few seconds.
Of course, and also they would have had every reason to believe they were in a safe environment. You know, these are essentially their children, okay?
That's it.
15, 16-year-old children. They would have trusted the adults that owned the establishment, and they would have believed that they were in very little danger, and that this was just a fun thing that they could have spoken about the next day. Unfortunately and tragically for them, it was not fun, and the death toll now, I'm sure, is going to exceed 50 at some point.
Most definitely, and I think that it has registered with all of our viewers and listeners, because it's just such a human tragedy, you know. And of course there's talk about, you know, a girl educated in the UK, and then you've got Italians, and we don't really care, do we, about the nationality. On a very human level, this is young people. It could be our daughter, it could be our son that has perished, and that's got a universal, you know, a universal buy-in for everyone. Yeah,
it's interesting because the front pages carry the story with a bent towards the British girl, who by the way, that's obviously very sad, but I don't think it matters. This is a tragedy for Europe. We can all look at this. It's New Year's Eve. These are young people. 2026 to them is like 1996 to us. They expected to be having great fun, making great memories, and to be starting out in their adult life very shortly with all the prospects afforded to them. And it won't happen for them now. And of course, there are other people involved in this that will live with those memories for the rest of their lives as well. Should safety regulations within UK bars and nightclubs change? Plus, just what have the emergency services gone through dealing with this shocking tragedy? It's 6:18. This is Talk Breakfast.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, have taken that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You're listening to Talk Breakfast. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. Lovely to have your company. Happy New Year to one and all. Is it time to call notes? Call notes. By the way, what I'm going to do now that it's January is start to learn to do sentences again. Do we need to call time on Sick Note Britain? 40,000 fit notes, so-called fit notes, have been handed out by GPs and health professionals every day over the past year. An estimated 11 million were issued, leading critics to say that the health system is a conveyor belt to worklessness rather than a route back to work. Well, Peter says, Mark, of course GPs are taking the easy steps and handing out sick notes like sweets, but I also want to warn the listeners about the 111 service. I waited 36 hours until I received a call back from a health professional. Well, Peter, I'm really sorry about that, and I hope that you're feeling okay now. Tony says, good morning, Mark. European economies will implode in 2026, especially in the UK, France and Germany. The debt spiral has been disastrous and bond markets are watching closely. We can't print funny money as inflation will rocket north again. Tony, I agree with you. Why is it that you get it? Why is it that I get it? Why is it that Paul Cox gets it? And Tommy on the phones. Why is it that my audience get it, but Rachel from accounts and the governor of the Bank of England do not? John in London says, good morning, Mark. I'm very pleased that Reform UK are doing so well in the polls. I think 2026 will be a good year for Nigel Farage, as I believe the party will get a big boost in the May elections. I want them to prioritise the deportation of foreign criminals and illegal immigrants. So do I, John, and I would actually pay higher taxes to deport people that have entered the country illegally who have done harm to our people. I would pay more tax. So I'd do a special surcharge called the foreign criminal surcharge. Call me old-fashioned. And how about this from Dave? Good morning, Mark. Starmer has no intention of stopping the boats. He's the kind of person who would allow this country to burn, then rule over the ashes. Wow, scorched earth allegations there from Dave. Dave, thank you for that. Lovely to have your message. First one of the year from your good self. With me in the studio, Paul Cox, broadcaster and comedian. Can we go back to this Swiss tragedy that's taken at least 40 lives? And what's interesting is, you know, I talked about the sparklers, which are bad enough. Sparklers themselves, this is a rod of metal with some powder sort of sprayed onto it, isn't it?
Yes.
And therefore, the fire hazard nature of a pure sparkler is not significant. What they were holding needs a different name. If you look at the front page of The Guardian, but this is more like, I mean, I don't know what you would call it, but it's...
Well, it is a sparkler, but it's like next level. By the way, if anyone caught me slightly laughing then, it's the absurdity I'm laughing at.
I know.
Because fireworks, fire, sparklers, indoor fireworks, to me, when you sit and think about it, it's absurd. It's absurd that we would take these things indoors. I mean, I guess that's fun, but it's incredibly dangerous.
Well, that's it. And I'd advise against, you know, sparklers as such, but they are at the lower end of hazard. These ones are being described in The Guardian as Bengal lights. And what they are, as you've suggested, is sort of souped up sparklers, basically. Yeah. And it's a crazy thing. The foam in the ceiling appears to be, and it was reported by a different news outlet, that it was similar to the foam that caused such a tragedy at the Grenfell Tower. That it was similar material.
I had read that as well. I don't know how substantiated that is, but let's just talk about it as if it is substantiated. If that's the case, how are we living in these silos?
I know.
How can something like Grenfell happen in 2017, by the way, which is now 9 years ago? Sorry, 9 years ago this June, I think it was. How can that lesson not have been learned around Europe? Because around the UK, every sort of council or landlord-owned block of flats had that stuff stripped off, and, you know, inappropriate material put on. You would have thought that other people would have looked at that. But this is always the case, isn't it? If you ever go on any fire, you know, when I had a real was managing people, I would go on fire training occasionally, and you watch these harrowing videos of nightclubs in Rhode Island or the Bradford FC fire in 85, 86 or whenever it was.
King's Cross, of course.
King's Cross in 86 as well. And you think, well, that's never going to happen again, but it does, and it is the really tragic and sad thing about this is it is avoidable. That night could have just gone ahead with those sparklers not been in there, that stuff not been flammable. The people holding those sparklers had some sort of training which suggested, which would have, you know, made sure they hadn't have held them as high as they did. Or
Right.
there's so many moments in time that could have actually prevented this. It's very
Well,
sad.
I know, I mean, sparklers in a basement, right? Go figure, a packed basement. And I know nothing about fire safety, but if you're in the basement of a nightclub and you look, and it's got a foam ceiling, the simple question would be, is that fire retardant foam? Well, we have the footage that demonstrates it absolutely wasn't.
No.
And it's funny because I don't know whether, you know, I can prejudge you on this, Paul, but I would suggest that you and I have one thing in common, which is I suspect that we both rail against the excessive health and safety culture in this country. And yet, I would certainly enjoy to have a more restrictive experience in a nightclub, knowing that I wasn't going to perish and the place wouldn't burn down while I'm dancing.
Oh, you're absolutely right, and you know, I'm against a nanny state and big government. However, the reason I'm against it is because I believe that as adult humans we can make sensible decisions ourselves, and sensible decisions were not made here. There are people that own, you know, I don't want to immediately chuck people under the bus. We just don't know enough.
Of course.
But from what we've seen, there were things that were avoidable, and I'd like to think that as adult humans with any sort of modicum of intelligence, you would make sure that didn't happen. I know it's easy to say in retrospect, and people were having fun, and everyone thinks they're going to live forever, but there has to be people in those moments that make decisions to prevent this from happening.
And there will be in UK venues, won't there, this weekend, people hand out sparklers that have candles and that have, you know, wooden ceilings, who will hopefully now reflect on this and possibly adapt their venues.
Yeah, it's unusual to see these things. I don't know, I haven't been to a nightclub for some time, so maybe in nightclubs in and around the UK these sparklers are a thing. But one thing I do know, running comedy clubs, we sometimes create this sort of scene where we put candles onto tables and we create the American type of comedy club. We have never been allowed to put live sort of naked flame candles out. Not in the 5 years I've run Naked Comedy.
I've seen a lot of those fake LED candles.
That's exactly, you know, that's
which
exactly
are fine.
what we use.
They're absolutely fine, aren't they?
Well, that's it. They're battery powered, small watch batteries.
Yeah.
And their fire risk is almost negligible.
Yeah, and that's got to be the way to go. So clearly, you know, what's got to happen from this is that things need to change, because this is not an exclusively Swiss story.
No.
There's something hazardous about, you know, basement venues wherever you are across Europe. What's also shocking, by the way, this is quite a blow for the reputation of Switzerland, I would suggest. First of all, it's one of the biggest tragedies to have befallen the country in their history outside of war, especially, you know, 40 young lives. And it's a sort of story, without wishing to sound prejudicial, that you might expect to read in China or India, or in a country where there is perhaps more local corruption, where corners are cut, and where the authorities have essentially, you know, less rigorous standards. It's not a story you expect from a country like Switzerland, which is one of the richest nations on earth. Yeah,
it just goes to prove that we're not immune from it, and that, you know, as much as we value our society being higher than those aforementioned, when you chuck in the mix of adolescent fun, alcohol and sparklers in a basement, you're basically creating a recipe for tragedy.
Another tragic element of this is the particularly young people that were there. Now, it looks like the overall sort of age quotient was anything from sort of 14, 15 to 25, late 20s. So it's basically young people in a nightclub. And this will have been a rite of passage for a couple of those 14 and 15-year-olds to be sort of sneaked into a bar, because I think the age, the age restriction was 16. But analysis elsewhere is that a lot of these clubs and these ski resorts are quite lax about who they let in, and you know, little Johnny has managed to sneak in. You know, I've got a fake ID.
Yeah, of course.
And they will have been so desperate to get into that venue in the first place.
Yeah, and I think our listeners and viewers and ourselves would have done similar things. I remember as a 17-year-old getting into a nightclub This is before photo ID, using my mate's, who was 21, his driving licence and getting in. You know, it's not big and it's not clever, but it was a lot of fun. Look, I don't think we can blame 15, 16, 17-year-old kids for this at all. Irrespective of how old they were, and that is a question mark, of course, but irrespective of how old they were, the people working there are sober and not drinking.
Correct.
I would hope. The fire regulations should have prevented it, and the owners of the establishment should have made sure everything was in place, so this simply could not have happened.
Most definitely. Well, listen, next up, Sir Keir Starmer has an unfortunate figure in his in-tray at the start of the year. Over 70,000 people have now entered the country illegally, which obviously makes a mockery of his plan to smash the gangs. Will Labour ever stop the boats? This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is 6:32, and I will tell you that Paul Cox and I are still absolutely scratching our heads about what happened in Switzerland. I make no apologies for focusing on it so readily, because it appears to be an example of, you know, terrible, terrible judgment on the part of those who managed that building, packing young people into a basement nightclub, handing out sparklers. You've got the foam ceiling, everything's made of wood, there are gas canisters around. I mean, it's literally unimaginable what's happened, and as Paul rightly said, without prejudging any future inquiries, it looks to have been avoidable. But listen, let's get on to a next story at 6:33 on Talk Breakfast, and it's a very unfortunate figure for Sir Keir Starmer, and that's 70,000 people that have now entered the country illegally since he became Prime Minister. This was the PM that was going to smash the gangs. Well, my brilliant producer, Dean Spencer, has drawn my attention to an excellent exclusive in the Sun newspaper, double-page spread, which highlights just how badly it's gone for the Prime Minister. Shock migrant stats expose utter failure of Labour's pledge. Smash the gangs. And we've got 62 migrants per boat on average, up from 53 in 2024 and 49 in 2023. 19,982 migrants in the first 6 months of last year, a record number. 1,195 arrived in 19 boats on one day, which was May the 31st. The top 5 most common countries: Eritrea, Afghanistan, Iran, Sudan and Somalia. Now, these are countries that have cultures which may not be universally compatible with a free Western society, and I think the attitude towards women will be very divergent from many of the men on those boats. And here's the kicker, Paul Cox: we don't know anything of their provenance because they chuck their mobile phones and their identification in the sea as they cross the channel. Smash the gangs. Do me a favour. Keir Starmer's having a laugh, isn't he? Will Labour ever stop the boats?
No, Labour won't stop the boats. Ideologically, they are unable to. I mean, statistically, it's impossible to get this amount of stupid people in one cabinet. It's utterly ridiculous. They convinced us right from the get-go that smashing the gangs was the way to deal with this. Yeah. It was never the way to deal with this. And when I say they're ideologically opposed to stopping these people. Keir Starmer has made a career on defending these type of people. import the third world, get the third world. That's exactly what's happened with this. And unless you deal with this with honesty and you say, we have built a society based around a set of rules and morals that they don't abide by and they are very unlikely to assimilate with, and therefore we should not encourage it and we should deal with it, then you are never going to deal with the problem. You have to remove the incentive. There's great incentives to come to the UK. This isn't all about people wanting to be with their family members. The incentives are free handouts, homes, cash, mobile phones, healthcare, all the things you could want are just handed out willy-nilly. There's no induction. And now it sounds terrible, but these are primarily young men of an age where they are sexually active, and they're a prism through which, their paradigm through which they measure their moral sexuality is entirely different to ours. And Keir Starmer has failed categorically in achieving this. In fact, he's made it... We knew instantly when he took away the Rwanda thing that it was acting. I know we didn't see it to fruition, but it was acting as if to disincentivise. People were starting to come in through Ireland. People were starting to look at different ways in. As soon as that was gone, it was carte blanche. They're coming in. And the numbers that we're seeing haven't gone down. The numbers that we're seeing are going up. I think that it's almost impossible for anyone other than perhaps Mahmood within that cabinet to resolve this. And Mahmood is on manoeuvres to become Prime Minister, so I think that she's performatively acting in a way. If she is a true socialist Labourite, they can't solve this problem. This takes someone with the traditional values of Nigel Farage or Rupert Lowe to fix. This means not wanting to abide by the ECHR. This means wanting to change the law. This means wanting to break the law, because the law's an ass. The law that allows all this to happen is an ass. You couldn't stop it overnight. We've seen Donald Trump stop it across the southern border in the US, and we can stop it here. We just have to have draconian action. And it's as simple as that. It might be uncomfortable and squeamish for some people, but we have to stop it, because who can carry on like this?
Definitely. What underpins that is political will, which is absent from this Prime Minister, a former human rights lawyer. Let's not forget this other story, which has gone viral online. An Islamist double killer who took a prison officer hostage has won a court case on human rights grounds because he was depressed after being put in solitary confinement. You couldn't make it up, could you? The only thing that surprises me is why Starmer wouldn't tackle the boats crisis, given the fact that, yes, he's a socialist, and yes, he believes in open borders and, tax your way to prosperity, all the rest of it. But he's also a pragmatist who loves a U-turn, and he wants to remain Prime Minister. Does he not understand that the best way to stay at number 10 is to tackle this problem?
No, I don't think he does. I think he might start seeing that, but I think...
Because he is ruthless and he is ambitious, isn't he?
He's also arrogant. There's a deep arrogance within Keir Starmer. We know that because there's very little credibility with Keir Starmer in terms of his integrity. If you look at he was in Corbyn's government. He then promised to carry... and I'm glad he didn't, but he then promised to carry on Corbyn's way, turned his back on that, and lied entirely to the Labour Party, and then spent the rest of the time lying to us. This man is incapable of making the right moves to solve this problem. This man is the wrong man to be Prime Minister in Great Britain right now.
Of course, to be fair to this Labour government, they could argue that they've inherited this disastrous mess in the Channel from the Conservatives, and it was the Tories' doomed open borders experiment which this government is now working very hard to tackle. One thing that we touched on there is the issue around culture. You've got these predominantly young men crossing the Channel. Some would argue fleeing persecution, although France is a safe country. Others would argue that they simply want to work and make something of their lives. Can we look at the nationality? Is it wrong to draw a distinction between men coming from Eritrea, Afghanistan, Iran, Sudan and Somalia, as opposed to, let's say, Spain, Italy, France and Sweden? Is it wrong to see those countries differently?
No. And by the way...
Is it racist to do so?
It doesn't matter if it is or isn't. I don't believe it is, by the way, but it doesn't matter. In order to resolve this issue, you have to look at those groups of people differently, because you have to identify what the problem is. It's a bit like an alcoholic. if you've ever known an alcoholic, the first step is to admit they've got a problem. Our problem is that our type of politics is being taken advantage of by these people, and primarily not just the people involved, the human rights lawyers as well. This is a growing business for them, exponentially growing business. They're capitalising on this ruthlessly.
And they tell the illegal immigrants what to say and what to do.
Well, yeah, openly. And you can go onto Instagram and TikTok, I believe, and find videos to tell you exactly how to do it if you're in this position.
And we've seen, haven't we, you mentioned also, particularly on the cultural side, attitudes to women, which are bound to be different from those in Spain, Italy, France and Sweden. There was a TikTok video floating around aimed at people who wanted to cross the channel and who would pay a handsome sum to criminals in which to do so. And those videos featured attractive British women with a clear message, this is what you'll get if you cross the channel.
Yes. And, you know, you really have to study that. That's exactly what these men believe the opportunity awaits them is.
Easy British girls.
Yes, and do you know what I wouldn't say is, you know, if there was a legitimate romantic relationship between an asylum seeker and a British national woman, that's fine.
Which Richard Curtis will probably make a movie about at some point.
Probably will. But one thing I would say...
With you having a cameo as the funny postman.
I'd love that. Richard, and I saw him wandering around Highgate just a couple of weeks ago. Actually.
There you go.
He didn't see me, but he doesn't know who I am. But
he will do. Don't worry about that.
He will do. Yeah, he's probably watching now. Richard, good morning.
Well, we should plug before you hold that point. But we must plug your brand new YouTube channel.
Yes, at Paul Cox Comedy on YouTube. I started making videos on a daily basis in the last week or so. I've reached 5,000 subscribers already. I'd love everybody listening and watching to this to tune in.
Please add to that at Paul Cox Comedy. So, Paul, continue your point about what we were saying in nationality and all the rest of it.
So we have to understand the cultural differences in order for us to understand the problem, and then we can make adult decisions that protect the safety of the people of this country. Look, if you're squeamish about it, then you shouldn't be in power. The people that are in power should be energised to protect people and not be afraid of the difficult decisions. They believe they're making difficult decisions by bringing them in, which to me is an illness. The difficult decision is to say charity starts at home. We need to protect our people. We've had the grooming gangs. We have seen endless crimes committed. By the way, you don't just listen to me and you. Go and look at the crime statistics. You have to look deeply because they don't actually really gather these statistics together because they don't really want us to know. But you only have to look back at 2025 at the convictions to understand that we are importing a huge problem.
Foreign men are disproportionately overrepresented in the sexual assault statistics. The facts don't care about your feelings, do they? However, Paul, is the idea that they're coming for our girls a racist trope?
Well, like I said before, if it is, then who cares? We seem to have built a society on now...
Well, if it's true, then it can't be racist, can it?
If it's true, it can't be racist, I agree. And look, you have to be, in order to be successful at anything, you have to take some risks. And one of the risks with this particular problem is the risk of being called racist. Well, you need the people who are involved in making the changes to not be fearful of that. We cannot, we seem to have, this particularly liberal, leftist, ultra-progressive type of politics seems to have made the racist absolutely everybody, and you're racist until proven otherwise. And by the way, to be a racist is the worst possible thing you can ever be. Now, to some people, they'll be listening to me now and thinking, well, of course it is, Paul. Well, actually, if you are going to blur the lines and you are going to make any discussion about this problem racist, then you are never going to solve it. So we have to crack that egg.
Wasn't there a figure within the Labour movement that said that girls who are victims of the grooming gangs should just be quiet in the name of diversity?
That has happened. That's been proven, and that's exactly why it perpetuates now.
If having been attacked isn't enough for you to speak up, if even that is racist, I mean, that's equivalent to incredibly base cultures where women go to jail for being raped.
Exactly. If a rape victim is racist for being raped by a person of a different culture and colour, then I don't want to live in that society.
We love voice notes on this show, and this is Jan in Newcastle.
Morning, Mark. Remember, when you're talking about Keir Starmer and the smash the gangs policy and all this malarkey. His top priority, though, was to get this really horrible person out of an Egyptian prison. There you go. Jan from Newcastle.
Jan gets it. Paul Cox gets it. Producer Dean gets it. But the authorities do not. Jan, thank you for a lovely voice note. This is Carl. Will Labour ever stop the boats? Take it away, Carl.
Hi, Mark. Carl in Bury. Regarding smashing the gangs and the boats, small boats, I think what you'll find this year is going to be a lot more people, British citizens, going over to France. It's not really been mentioned much in the media, but there are social media sites now that are enrolling people to go to France to pop these boats, and there's been quite a lot of boats popped. And I've got a feeling you're going to start seeing numbers maybe drop, but it won't be because of Keir Starmer. It'll be because of the efforts of the British citizens going over and actually doing the job that the British government should be doing. I've seen one site where they're saying they've got 20,000 people that have volunteered, saying they're prepared to join and actually go over. So I just think we're going to see quite an unusual escalation of this. But the question is, like I said, is Keir Starmer going to then try and get credit for it?
Well, it's a brilliant point, and that is a question I've got for you at 6:46 in the morning. Is it wrong for the French authorities to threaten arrest of Brits who make their own efforts to stop the boats? That's next.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, have taken that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is 6:48. You're listening to Talk Breakfast, and this from, let's have a look, Bruce in Christchurch in Dorset. Good morning, Mark. Happy New Year. Great to have you back on Talk Breakfast. Hope the package I sent you has arrived. Oh, I'll have a look at that. Thank you very much. I do hope it was contraband. And how about this from Steve? Good morning, Mark. Happy New Year to you and Paul. In regard to 2026, there will be huge financial upheavals. You were correct about why can't Reeves and the Bank of England see what we see? They can, but they are willingly car crashing the economy. Then they'll have the excuse to implement all of the digital age that they're desperate to introduce for total control over our lives. Most don't realise half of what they have in store for us. Well, Steve, I do agree. I don't trust this Labour government not to leverage and weaponise a financial crisis to usher in digital control and socialism. Sean says, good morning, Mark. I agree with Paul Cox about legal aid lawyers. Stop legal aid and watch the deportations increase exponentially. Margaret in Yorkshire, regarding the nightclub fire in Switzerland, I remember venues having sprinklers in the ceiling that were activated at the first sign of smoke or a fire. This would have helped contain the beginning of the fire, giving time to evacuate the premises. Margaret, you're so right. And Michelle, good morning, guys. These men coming from the third world cultures and ideologies are coming en masse to take from us and everything that we've built. Our children's futures, our jobs, housing, and they hate us. They rape, murder, take with no morals, let in deliberately, now treated like kings by Labour. The conversation around immigration has really changed, hasn't it, Paul? And you said something earlier in the show, which is that if you import the third world, you get the third world. Now, 3 or 4 years ago, that's a sentiment that would have got you cancelled, but it's not anymore, is it? No, and I feel I'm aware of that as I say it, by the way, and I don't take it for granted. I'm also aware that both you and I are in a privileged position. We're both in the comedy industry, and we know that tens, hundreds, maybe thousands of our colleagues cannot freely speak like we do. They just simply cannot, because their aspiration is in the direction of becoming a TV comic or presenter. Correct. And therefore, to speak in the way that we do would prevent that from ever happening. I mean, I think times will change, but I think I also have a responsibility to talk openly and honestly, and also try to talk for the people that are leaving voice notes, the people that are writing in today, because they need to feel and they need to understand that they're not alone. That's the whole point of talkTV. It's a brilliant, brilliant point. You are. That is our mantra, and we had it during the pandemic when I was looking after the Drive Time show, which is people used to call me, and sometimes I'd bump into people in the street, and they would say, "You've kept me sane because you know, you helped me realise that I wasn't going mad." And if you think it's crazy, I think it's crazy too. I'm going to be calling it out. Pete the Mole has left a voice note on the Swiss ski tragedy. Take a listen.
Good morning. The fire caused by that sparkler. I think the invention of indoor fireworks is one of the most ridiculous, incompetent things that have ever happened. Whoever thought anyway of giving the general public explosives to do with what they like? Also, what should be called into question with that nightclub is, yeah, a lot of people sadly died there. But what the hell parents are letting a 15-year-old girl into a club like that, and all the other youngsters that are in there underage? That needs to be called out as well. As for the government, 2026, unless this government is forced to resign, it's just going to be worse and worse and worse. Pete, thank you for that. How about this voice note? The government are unable to bring the third world up to our standards, so are trying to take this country down to the third world level. Stop the benefits and most immediate immigration will cease. Dave says, good morning, Mark. It's Starmer's intention to change this country to a pure socialist state, and the worry is, as it finally dawned on him that he will only get one term, the destruction will quicken. That is from Dave. Maggie in London, it's not we importing the illegals, it's this useless, pathetic, spineless government, and being accused of being racist now brushes off on most of us. It's just been used to shut up conversation. Good morning, Mark and Paul, says Caroline. Let us please not forget how Welsh politicians also used our school children to entice migrants to come here. It's on YouTube. Do like I did, a bit of research. Love the show, and I mean no disrespect, but the public needs to be aware that Labour also uses our school children to welcome migrants to arrive in small boats. That was a story. That's not fake news. You're right to draw attention to it, Caroline. What about this, Paul? 40,000 so-called fit notes have been handed out by GPs and health professionals every day over the past year. Let's have a look at this. An estimated 11 million rebranded sick notes were issued, leading critics to say that the health system is a conveyor belt to worklessness rather than a route back to work. Economic inactivity due to ill health is costing the UK £212 billion in lost output a year. What do you think about this, Paul? Well, I don't think it's a coincidence that, as we've seen the demise of the NHS, particularly since the pandemic, even up until 2019, whilst it might take a while, you could guarantee to see a GP at some point. It's very difficult to see a GP now. You'll often see a bloke called Andy who's got a bit of first aid training. And as a result, and because, I mean, this conveyor belt is created because they simply do not have the bandwidth and the capacity to deal with the numbers coming through. So to take the path of least resistance, whether it's to dish out tablets, antidepressants, or it's to say, here's a sick note, don't worry, a couple of weeks after, is they leave that GP's office and they don't come back for a while, and it solves their immediate problem. It does not
in any way solve the long-term issue.
Most definitely. And also, is it not a little bit George Orwell 1984 to rebrand a sick note as a fit note, given that it's the opposite of what it is? This is a note that allows you not to work, so you're not fit at all.
Yeah, and I've
double speak.
People just take it on that no one ever challenges anything. If you work in a big corporation, I used to work in these places. If you work in a big office for a big employer, these edicts are floated, cascaded down, and you just accept them. If you don't accept them, you don't fit in. And it's all about playing the game. But this is exactly what happens. We change something from sick to fit, and it immediately changes the perspective. So it's like, I'm not fit to work. I'm not fit. But the word fit just sticks there. It's not sick. No one's dealing with the illness. Why is this person needing this time off? Look, we don't want to chuck the baby out with the bathwater. There's lots of people who do need to have that sick note because they simply can't work. And this enables their employer and them to be paid.
Yeah, most definitely. And it's really bad news for... It's a little bit like, you know, illegal immigration, which is bad news for people that genuinely deserve refuge in this country.
Yeah.
Similarly, a sick note culture is bad news for those who do merit state support. But I'm afraid that issues like stress and anxiety and ADHD, if that qualifies as sickness now, well, this doesn't end well for the country, does it?
Well, I say we're at the point now where we've seen we're well into the ending. Genuinely,
wow,
sad to say. I think
is it 5 to midnight, or is it 5 past midnight?
Look, there's a clash of cultures between generations as well. We're Gen X, on the very end of Gen X. We were basically, you pulled yourself up by your bootstraps and got on with it. Now, the generation that is coming to adulthood now, Gen Z, sees that as totally toxic in some way.
Yeah.
That no, you don't do that. You need to take your sadness seriously, and you can't just pull yourself up by the bootstraps. You've got to indulge in it. Now, I'm not suggesting one is right and the other's wrong, although I am, but there is a midpoint, and it cannot be. It cannot be that people don't go to work, because we have to accept that a working society outside of communism and socialism builds the economy, which sustains everything else. People need to work, people need to generate growth, and the economy needs to grow in order for everything else to be supported. And we all play our role in that. And I think a lot of people have forgotten that. And the reason they've forgotten it is because it's not taught. The value of work is not taught. Yeah. The Industrial Revolution is something that's seen as bad. The Victorians are seen as bad. Gen Xers are seen as bad. Everything that happened before 2012 is seen as bad. So everything that's happened since 2012 is this sickness within society where people are encouraged to feel sick. People are told feeling sick's okay, and that you don't have to deal with it. You just take your time off work and you go back when you feel ready. Now, I think there's a counter argument to this, and that we don't have a health service that helps support these people. So they are just given the path of least resistance. So we can't just ignore it and say nobody's sick. People are sick, and mental illness is mental health is part of something that needs to be looked at seriously.
Yes, definitely, and I agree with that. And my heart goes out to viewers and listeners who are struggling physically, and may God bless you as you try to get through the new year and you do a bit of work or you don't do a bit of work. That's why we pay our taxes, to look after those who cannot work. But that's not going to be many of those who are receiving these sick notes. And I just wonder whether GPs are complicit in this effective scam in some cases, Paul, and I don't think that's too strong a language.
No, they're well protected, GPs. The NHS, people who work with the NHS, incredibly well protected.
And they whip out the prescription pad, don't they?
I genuinely think GPs need to own and be accountable for some of this problem.
Yeah, well, listen, that's it. Have you got a note of positivity for us? Because I know that we talked about lots of issues facing the country. Is there hope for 2026? Are we going to be all right?
Yes, there is hope for 2026, because it's not as if there isn't other options. You can vote in change.
And change is coming, isn't it, Paul? We would never change you. You're an amazing comedian. Check out @PaulCoxComedy on YouTube. Please subscribe to his brand new channel. And let me tell you that he'll be back very, very shortly indeed. Coming up, you will not believe this story. An Islamist killer wins a legal battle over his human rights. Do you care about the human rights of foreign criminals? That is next. You're listening to Talk Breakfast.
Libya has become a major transit route for refugees and migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, and many of them come through Libya dreaming of getting to the UK, particularly from Sudan, where there has been a civil war waging for the last 2 years. And those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the Channel crossing as the dangerous bit, but actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many tens of kilometers have to be covered on foot by these migrants, and as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness. Please understand the scale of what we are dealing with here with very, very limited resources. Once again, you know, people come in from charities, from NGOs, they use warm words, and the authorities here told me the only thing that we ever get is maybe a few toothbrushes and some nappies for the babies.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
On a Saturday, 7:03 on a Saturday morning, you're listening to Talk Breakfast. I'm Mark Dolan. A happy new year to each and every one of you. I hope you had a great Christmas. I'm wishing you all the best for a healthy, prosperous and productive new year. Breaking this morning, nightclub owners have been interviewed by police and could face manslaughter charges as the Swiss tragedy sees 40 dead and over 100 badly injured. We've got the inside story. Reform UK vote to jail grooming gang rapists for life. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage wins the farmers' vote. We'll get reaction. And what about this? An Islamist killer wins a £250,000 battle over his human rights. But does anyone care about the human rights of foreign criminals? Plus, just how bad is the weather going to get as we embark on the new year? We'll speak to a top meteorologist. How are conditions for you? Let me know. Is it snowy? Is it icy where you are? I've got to say, I came in on my moped this morning and I had black ice and it was, I'll tell you, quite a white knuckle ride. So do be careful out there. Even on the pavements walking around, I think it's an absolute disastrous, you know, skating rink, basically. It gives me the heebie-jeebies. Meanwhile, talking of heebie-jeebies, as Keir Starmer's plan to smash the gangs looks to be in ruins, with 70,000 people having entered the country illegally since he became Prime Minister, will Labour ever stop the boats? And with mounting evidence that the system is being abused, do we need to call time on Sick Note Britain, as 40,000 such notes are filled out on a daily basis, paid for by guess who? You and I. Now, my priority is to get your views on the national radio and television airwaves. My phone number is 0344 499 1000. Tommy is taking your calls. Do we call time on Sick Note Britain? Have you got stories of how it's been abused? Or are you someone that has a sick note and needs it? Let me know. Plus, what is the weather like in your area? And will Labour ever stop the votes? Those are some of the big topics we're covering this morning. I want your input. Drop me a voice note if you can. Text the word talk in your message to 87222, and as the saying goes, let's talk. Now, of course, we're delighted to be on the radio DAB+. We're online, we're in-app, and you can watch the show. Just head to YouTube and search Talk, and up we pop with a live television product. Now, I can't believe this story. An Islamist double killer who took a prison officer hostage has won a court case on human rights grounds because he was depressed after being put in solitary confinement. David Lammy, the Justice Secretary, mastermind himself, has agreed to pay a £7,500 compensation bill and foot a £250,000 legal bill for Fuad Awale, a convicted double murderer, after a judge ruled that his treatment in jail breached his human rights. So that's our taxpayers' cash, folks. Almost 300 grand goes to a foreign criminal, somebody responsible for a double murder, and now the authorities are worried about his feelings. Let's get reaction now from a very wise man, indeed a good friend of mine. Mike Neville is a retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector. Good morning, Mike, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, good morning, Martin. Happy New Year to you and the listeners too.
It's a very unhappy new year for taxpayers who have got to foot the bill almost £250,000 for a criminal who was depressed after being put in solitary.
Yeah, let's look at this man, actually. He shot two men in the head in a premeditated murder, and he took a prison officer hostage and threatened to kill him as well. That's the sort of vicious killer we're looking at here. And what strikes me here, though, is the winners, as ever, are the lawyers. Nearly £250,000 goes to human rights lawyers. Now, my question is, why was he ever allowed to rack up that bill? Why didn't somebody say, look, what's going on here? How's this bill ever going to be paid? But this is a massive legal industry, Mark, where people are making enormous sums of money. They can virtue signal and say, look, we're concerned about human rights, and then take all this money. And the fact that this man has got £7,500, never mind 7.5 pence, it is absolutely disgraceful. But what it shows, Mark, all the time is the disconnect between the establishment, the state, and the working people. We've diverged in two completely different directions. What we would call common sense and decency, to them is just madness. To them, to us, they're insane, but to them, they think they're doing the right thing. They're enforcing this awful foreign law that we don't really need. And it just shows the utter mess that this country is in.
We need, don't we, Mike, to unilaterally dismantle the legal structures of this country?
We need to do something, yes, because this is costing fortunes. But the Parliament is packed full of lawyers. Lawyers like to make lots and lots of money while at the same time claiming they're doing the right thing. And why would they ever want to dismantle this? You know, they can see that the taxpayers are being forced to shovel in more and more and more money, and they can make more and more money. Every one of these people arriving, it is a potential source of cash. So why would they ever stop it happening? It's just madness. And as I say, we need to break it all down. We need to withdraw immediately from this European Convention of Human Rights. Because if we remember the history of this was brought in really as a result of seeing Jews arrested, persecuted, shot in the street, gassed in concentration camps. This is why it was brought in, because these European countries had totalitarian regimes. We've never had that in this nation. We never needed these laws. But then these laws, which were brought in for good reason, have been perverted. So now when you say to a killer, right, you're not associating with those two Islamic killers because you might be converted as well, that is somehow seen as hurting his feelings and damaging his right to a private life. It is utter insanity.
Mike, is it overly incendiary to characterise some of these human rights lawyers as enemies of the people or enemies of the state?
I think you're right to say that they are enemies of the state. They are not. They're simply these people are not concerned with Britain. And I don't know what's happened with my camera because it seems to have done some crazy things.
Well, you've
there,
got
Mark.
a little blinky. The good news, Mike, is we can hear you, and I will tell you that you are absolutely so nailing it this morning. So do continue with your answers while we address the picture issues. But we'll keep a camera on me for the time being, if you don't mind, Charlie. And what I want to ask you is, yeah, so I mean, that's the question, if these people are working against the interests of the British people.
Yeah, I absolutely agree but it's just gone back. One, they can virtue signal and claim that they're doing all the right things with international law. This is something that Keir Starmer will bang on about all the time. International law. Oh, we'll embarrass ourselves. We'll become like Belarus or something. It's just rubbish. This argument is just nonsense. This is what they bang on about. That's how they justify themselves. But then, as I say, they follow the money in all these things. And every time that a boat comes across, that's another crop of people who can fill their pockets.
It most definitely is. And clearly, you know, this is just a mockery of the system as it speaks. Mike, I want to get on a couple of other stories if we can. Can I just get your overview on the tragedy at a nightclub at a Swiss ski resort? Over 40 appear to have perished now, with over 100 still injured. I know you're not an expert on fire safety, but it does look like there's a case to answer on the part of the management and owners of this venue.
Well, yes, of course, Mark. And I was, as a detective inspector, I investigated fire incidents and things like that when all sorts of dreadful deaths in the army, investigated things that helicopters had exploded. So I've seen the consequences of these awful fires. And firstly, my heart goes out, one, to the people who obviously have died and those teenagers who are terribly injured. And also, I'm a parent, the parents as well. It's utterly dreadful. But with the fire investigation, that will be a really, the job of that is an awful one. And I feel for the investigators involved to have to delve through that crime scene. I've actually identified bodies that have been terribly burned. It is just a dreadful business that we ask law enforcement and fire investigators to do. But as I say, my heart goes out to the people involved. And I think it really is a fire safety issue. You look at the spread of that fire, it is quite incredible for anybody to see.
Well, that's right. This will be Switzerland's Hillsborough moment, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And they're going to have to look at other places as well, because obviously these areas rely on tourism and people have got to feel safe when they go there. But the actual venue itself, just as a layperson to look at it, when you've got a cellar with one exit coming out of it, it just looked dreadful. And then you got live flames in the form of those sparklers that they had. And it looks like something on the ceiling was highly flammable, but just a dreadful thing. And just after Christmas, as I say, as a parent, my heart goes out to the mums and dads who children, and they're mainly kids, aren't they? Teenagers have died.
Anything from 14, 15 up to 25, just embarking on their lives. It's an unimaginable tragedy, Mike. And what about the emergency services having to go in and deal with that situation? There have been eyewitness reports about people with burnt clothes, burnt skin, burnt hair, and with a number of the victims having lost parts of their face. Can you just tell me what an officer will be going through witnessing that and how they'll attempt to process it in the days, weeks and months ahead?
Well, when you deal with these things, you have to be highly professional. Of course, you have to deal with the victims. What you need is you need to get away and with the colleagues you've done it with, and someone have a drink or something, just get your head, process it. What they find with law enforcement officers is that most people see about 3 or 4 traumatic things in their lives. When you're in law enforcement, you're seeing 4,000 of those things. One of the sad things about that is in Britain in particular. They said, oh, you know, there's no bars in police stations or in hospitals or wherever. And these are often places where people went away, talked about it, got it out of their heads. And now we're told there's a mental health crisis. Well, there's some simple reasons behind that. And I pity modern law enforcement officers. I was in a better and a wiser society, I think.
I think you were. Alex has messaged saying, good morning, gents. Those sparklers are used in most higher-end nightclubs around the world. They're attached to the top of bottles of spirits. When the customer buys the full bottle, they make them look and feel good spending larger amounts of money. This is about money, isn't it? Alex is right there, Mike. But, I mean, you know, I'm not one for the nanny state, but is it time to ban these sparklers indoors?
Well, you know, when you deal with any live flame anywhere, you know, you candles in a tight packed room, you're always going to have danger. But those sparklers in particular, when, you know, you're carrying people on top of your shoulders and there's flammable substance on the roof, it's never going to play out well.
It isn't, is it? Mike, listen, it's been a real treat to have you back, and we enjoyed our many on-air adventures last year. Look forward to plenty in 2026. Happy New Year to you. My thanks to the one and only Mike Neville, retired Scotland Yard Detective Chief Inspector. Next up, Nigel Farage wins the farmers' vote. How so? And an interesting policy, Reform UK vote to jail grooming gang rapists for life. We'll get reaction to that next.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, have taken that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, of course, we'll bring you more on the shocking, devastating fire at a nightclub in a Swiss ski resort. This from Sharon, who says, good morning, Mark. Happy New Year. Of course, the owners of this establishment need to be responsible. This venue is in the basement. It was not catered for so many people. The owner jeopardised people's lives just for money. Surely they knew that this couldn't be safe. It's absolutely shocking. My heart goes out to the family. Well, Sharon, I agree with you there about the possible implications of the management of that venue. Was it a profit grab? Were they really concerned about safety? And I do hope that it provokes change, not just in Switzerland, but in venues across Europe, including in this country, because I've certainly been to a few nightclubs that didn't look like they had many fire exits, that did have candles in the basement, that did have wooden ceilings. And I do hope that, as I say, the authorities in this country as well take note about what's happened so it doesn't happen again. Some big grooming gang stories floating around today. Child rapists will be jailed for life as part of a crackdown on grooming gangs if Reform UK wins the next election. Reform said it was shameful that there was currently no minimum sentence for child sexual abuse or exploitation in England and Wales. We'll get reaction from opposing voices in our head-to-head debate on that in the next hour. But another Reform story is that now Nigel Farage's Insurgent Party is the most popular party among farmers as the Tories rapidly lose support. 40% of Britain's farmers now back Nigel Farage's party, according to a survey by Farmers Weekly magazine, up from just 15% at the time of the 2024 general election. Well, let's get reaction now from Alan Miller, who is the co-founder of the Together Declaration, which very much represents people power in the political space. Good morning, Alan, and Happy New Year.
Good morning, Mark. Happy New Year to you.
Now, Alan, farmers are very, very resourceful people and they're politically astute. Why are so many of them backing Farage?
I think what's happened, Mark, is that over the period, there have been so many things that have been promised to farmers that people then reneged on and did U-turns and then imposed even more measures, for instance, as we've seen. And even though it's good that all the work of the farmers and campaigners and the public and your viewers and listeners has resulted in a U-turn to a certain extent by this government, it's also the case that 6,000 family farms have been lost in that period since the measures on IHT have been imposed, and some tragedies as well with farmers. And farmers are sick to their teeth to being treated in a way that's contemptible, that really doesn't appreciate the fact that they're the backbone of Britain, that often they make very, very little profit. People look at assets, they look at maybe even turnover, but if you look at profit, they're working hard day in, day out, enormous hours throughout the seasons. They love the life, they love the work, but the way they've been treated is really, really problematic, and that's true of net zero policies, that's true of a range of measures. And so I think that when Nigel Farage and Reform came out and said they'd abolish IHT for everyone, and that also included people obviously like the public but veterans and businesses and all the others that have this imposed on them, and also that they showed that they consistently came out and listened, and also because of the concerns around the rural arena and the measures that are being imposed on there, we see this again, this kind of this real misunderstanding about rural life and the public and who they are, and the people who are in the city in Whitehall seem to think, you know, the Labour Party, that they're all really wealthy, kind of bougie people driving around in Land Rovers with not a care in the world, but actually don't understand how things work from an economic and cultural point of view, and the contribution they make to society and how much the public actually loves them. And I think that Reform's got the populist wind behind its sails. It's got this sense that the public generally and the public love our farmers, are very furious with being treated with such indignity and contempt by the elite. We've seen it. This is not just around farming. We've seen things like getting rid of trial by jury, right to appeal with magistrates, concerns around free speech. So the questions around the rural community, what the most recent measures around what's being discussed that have implications for them might sound really nice about animal welfare rights. Okay, it's not general either, you know, it's made for one area, not others. And then we see that it's also, the point needs to be heard and understood that whilst this goes some way to addressing the concern, it still is not going to go anywhere near far enough, and there's massive concerns still in the farming community. So, you know, together for the last year and somewhat, we've been out campaigning, making sure that councillors here, that MPs here, that the cabinet here, doing calls to action, writing, campaigning, supporting people on demos and organising protests, making sure that the public and farmers, and we have a united voice. And I think in many ways what's happened is that farmers recognise that, you know, they've made a decision that it looks like Reform are actually going to be the ones that are going to do something and actually support British farming and farmers, and that needs to happen.
Most definitely, and here on Talk Breakfast we support British farmers to the hilt, and we've of course platformed many when they've been out protesting in central London. However, we know the economy's in the red, don't we, Alan? Does support for the farmers add weight to criticisms of reform, that they're going to splash the cash, that this is another constituency that they're going to help financially, irrespective of the fact that the country's broke?
Yeah, well, I think that it's a very important question, and the way in which we deal with the economy. I mean, wealth creation, dynamic wealth creation, investment in infrastructure, pulling back on the range of frankly mad spending, not just on net zero. And I think they've done they've done a tot up of where they would pull back on things, but you can see how much net zero is impacting farming in a detrimental way. And at the moment, Ed Miliband wants to delve down even deeper on it. But I think it has to be looked at in the round. And what does it mean for our economy? What does it mean for food security? What does it mean in the same way that we've seen with energy, right? You can make calculations about what you're going to do, but what does it mean for energy security, what we've seen in the last 10 years and how that's impacted us, and prices have shot up. In the same way, if we have all our farmland being turned into solar panel areas, if we don't have food security, what's that going to mean for us as a nation generally? But I think, the question of policy and rural and agricultural policy is really important. I know that I'm seeing that Reform have got far more people from the point of view of doing policy and measures and implementing that. But I think you could basically say there's so much spent on the state and the public sector that's ideological. And we're not even talking about frontline staff like the NHS. And I really think that what's happened in the States with DOGE, many of those measures can be implemented here. And that's a question that's got to be put to Reform as well, to what extent is this going to work? But I think that now we've seen that the farmers are completely distrustful of the other parties. I understand why that is. And I really think it's great, Mark, that so many people in the public and farmers stood up, and they're going to continue to do so and push and articulate their concerns. And that means that everybody has to be held accountable, whoever they are in that position.
Most definitely. Does it not concern you, though, that so many of Reform's plans involve spending money the country hasn't got?
So, the thing is,
they're going to cut taxes. They want to cut taxes, raise the threshold at which you pay income tax in the first place. They're going to back the farmers. They're going to, obviously invest in defence and education, policing. They're going to deport people. All that's going to cost money. Border control. Money, money, money.
Money, money, money indeed, Mark. I mean, it is obviously one thing to be in opposition and another to be in power. But I do think, like with Donald Trump, if you go in and you have a mandate and you have the public support and you say you're going to commit to this and you're very honest about what it's going to cost and what you're going to deliver and what you could do in a first term and what this country needs over a period, and it's not just about a first term. We've had far too much of that short-termism in British politics. And you're honest and you win a mandate and you engage the public and you say, this is going to be painful. This is what it's going to cost. You know you want this. Here's how we're going to do it. This is the timeline. And you show that you've got a serious plan like you would do in business. And you say, this is how we're going to be judged on the merit and virtues of it. And I've got to say, Mark, even if they deliver on some of the things they are putting forward, I think it would be far better than what we've got currently. But they're very important questions and they have to be addressed democratically and openly and constructively.
Well, I think you speak with enormous sense there. Do you have the ear of Reform, or do they have your ear?
Oh, I don't have ears here, Mark. All I do is we try and shout loudly and make good points. I mean, look, we talk to as many people as we can. I really like what I see Reform doing. I think that, but I will say this, I think the public in many ways are ahead of almost everyone on many issues. I think the public for a long time have been very fed up with the way they've been treated. And I think the wind behind the sails, we're seeing this internationally around a kind of populism, and how that's dealt with and how that's articulated and how that's dealt with is really, really essential and important. And people are very furious, obviously, by what promises were made and what instructions were given around Brexit and subsequently. And I think it's important that we don't allow cynicism to reign. But I would say this thing as well, that happens when people don't deliver on what they promise. But I would say this as well, Mark. You know, in the end, it's going to be up to all of us. It's going to be up to all your listeners and viewers and everyone in Britain. The way that we keep everyone honest and on target and clear is that we have a strong public. We hold everyone's feet to the fire. We keep asserting ourselves. We stand. You know, people can stand. Many more people who've never been involved in politics. I've certainly spoken at events and meetings around the country where people have come up to me and they've never been involved in politics and they're standing for reform, for instance, as councillors or others. So if all of the elections are not cancelled, and we should see that in May, there will be quite a big change, it's looking like, and I think that's going to be true then following. We'll see some more changes, I think, at leadership level after that and what's going to happen. But I really think that the way that we keep a healthy state and society is to make sure that the demos, the public, the people can be engaged and as much as possible and keep everyone honest. That's the most honest we can keep people. And the question of a civil society and a civic society, and one where, you know, many of the concerns we've seen around crime and issues, a range of issues you're talking about today, the way they can get resolved and turned around is that we have a society that we believe in one another's values, we hold firm to them, and we support one another. There's a sense of authority amongst adults and what it means to be British. And you do that when people are engaged and participating and have a sense of common purpose together. And so I really hope that that's the case. You know, that's what we're going to see with this, what we were calling with populism. But I think the way that you make sure you level out hope is you have to say we all have a responsibility and a duty within all of that to commit to it ourselves.
Yes, briefly, if you can, Alan, do you think the Tories have burned their bridges as the main party of the right in this country?
You know, I think well, yes, is the quick answer. But I think the thing to say is that, you know, the Conservatives tried to become all things to all people in some ways. I know there was a discussion about a broad church and you always had libertarians and neocons and then people in the middle. I understand that argument. But if you think about the massive mandate that they had and how that was really squandered and what that meant and how many people really felt truly insulted, and I think that it's going to take a long time for them, and it should take some time for them. I mean, I think many people are talking about them being punished, and I think that meant that doesn't just mean, well, you just lose this election and then everything's hunky-dory. I mean, the measures that were imposed during lockdown, the way that the public was treated, the questions of what it meant to be an actual Conservative, they were usurped and upended. And more broadly, just questions about liberty, you know, and conscience and privacy. And I think that to do that in such a cavalier fashion and just to use straplines and then say, well, we were told to do this by other people, really shows a contempt, a dereliction of duty. And I would be surprised, and I'm not surprised the public are fed up of that. And frankly, I think the public have been fed up of the Punch and Judy kind of uni-party situation. Yeah. And since we've seen really since Tony Blair, we've seen like Blair and then Cameron, and we've seen a kind of very much similarity in people, similar backgrounds, similar attitudes, similar political views in the main part. I'm not going to caricature everyone, but for the main part. And I think that, you know, what people, we stopped having a connection with the public, like with the farmers, but with ordinary people. And, you know, it used to be the case that in Parliament you had people in Labour, they would represent labouring people, Conservatives would represent many people from different sections of society. That went, and it's all Russell University people who've done PPE courses, and we haven't got out enough, we haven't been part of the constituencies, and this is an important time to actually recalibrate and to be able to kind of set ourselves for the future. We have to remember, Mark, that this is not inevitable anywhere. We see in vast swathes of the world a very different type of way of organising. It's not democratic. People became a bit like, oh yeah, well, what does democracy mean? It's not really that big a thing. But actually, where freedom of speech and our liberties are not treated in the same way, we see it daily in different parts of the world. And that we've got something precious, but if we don't all participate in it and make it the best it can be, then we've all got to hold ourselves accountable a bit for it too.
Most definitely. Listen, Alan, it's been an education listening to you. Do join us again in the near future. My thanks to Alan Miller, co-founder of the Together Declaration, which actually talked a lot of sense during the pandemic, calling out, in my personal view, the madness of lockdowns, masking and vaccine tyranny. And Together declaration is very much about people power. Well, is Reform UK the very essence of people power? Let me know, 0344 499 1000. Listen, folks, what's going on with the weather? How bad is it going to get? And will Labour ever stop the boats? That's next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
70,000 people have entered the country illegally since the Prime Minister entered number 10, that is Keir Starmer. He was going to smash the gangs. Will Labour ever stop the boats? This is a voice note from Perry.
Morning, Mark. What I don't understand is when these, well, you speak Conservatives and now Labour, you know, when they say, oh, it's stopping the boats, it's hard, it's difficult, it's complicated. I don't see how it can be so complicated. All you got to say is if you land on the beach, you will be detained, you will not be released, and you will be entitled to nothing. How complicated is that? I just don't understand how it can be, you know, and they say, well, you know, we're breaching human rights. Well, you know, let them fine us. We don't pay it. But they say, oh, this person's now entitled to compensation. Okay, then we're not paying it. What can they do? What can they do? You know, ruin our trade agreement because we're not being friendly enough to migrants? I don't know. Just don't understand it.
Well, Perry, thank you for a brilliant voice note, and I agree with you. One of the arguments against tearing up the ECHR is it will affect our reputation internationally. It will affect our reputation abroad. And here's what I think at 37 minutes past 7 on a Saturday morning. I don't care about our reputation internationally. I mean that. Clip that. Let's make it a meme. I don't care about our reputation internationally. I don't care what other countries think of us. What I care about is our reputation at home. I care about our reputation among the viewers and listeners of this show that think it's insane that a man who's a double murderer receives compensation from the government, from the taxpayer, because he was put in solitary confinement and it made him depressed. Why was he put in solitary confinement? Because a double murderer kidnapped and incarcerated and took hostage a prison officer. Make it make sense. More of your voice notes in a moment. Can we talk about the weather briefly? How bad is it going to get? I'm delighted to welcome a very good friend of mine and, of course, a regular on the show, senior meteorologist at British Weather Services, Jim Dale. Morning, Jim. Happy New Year.
Morning, Mark. Morning, Mark. Happy New Year to you as well.
Thank you for making the early start. Well, I was shocked this morning because I had trouble getting my little moped going because it was so freezing cold. And then I had black ice, and that was in the capital. So there are lots of viewers and listeners across the country probably suffering a bit this morning, I would have thought.
Yeah, you're not wrong. It's snowing behind you on your pictorial, but it's not.
Yes, I'm afraid that's fake news.
I know. Look, it is snowing in various parts of the country. Essentially, look, the worst place is in terms of depth and longevity of the snow is Scotland, particularly the Highlands, the Grampians, But it's also snowing down parts of the west coast, Wales, Northern Ireland, and also the east coast. It's a bit strange, but it's missing the middle bits for the large degree. And that will be the case today as well. Now, you're waking up to temperatures, people are waking up to temperatures, not too frigid, actually. We're talking -1s, -2s, zeros, not -10s at the moment, because there's a lot of cloud around, particularly in the north. Look, the warning that I think I'm coming on this programme for is more to do with what's coming next. And it's Sunday evening going into the night and Monday, Tuesday. By that time, I think the snow will have crept all the way down and plagued most of the country. Maybe the demarcation line could be the M4 corridor. So London is in that sort of transition zone. Maybe, maybe not. But everything north of there, excuse me, looks as if it will enter into the snowfields. So yeah, the warnings are out there, and they need to be heeded, because it isn't just about black ice. If you're having difficulty, then imagine somebody who's not quite got their marbles around them, etc., etc. Old, you know, these sort of people. This is what the warnings are for, the health warnings particularly, that you do call on neighbours to make sure they're not freezing to death, that their heating's gone off or whatever. All of that is common sense, which is what your programme's about, is it not?
Well, we try, don't we, Jim? And the issue you've got is it's not just cars on the road, motorbikes and cyclists, it's pedestrians as well, because those pavements are slippery. It's a death trap for many, Jim.
Yeah, it is. Look, I woke up yesterday and there was a slight, where I am in High Wycombe, there was a slight fall of snow, but what happened is it melted quite quickly, it froze over. You know, I don't even think the gritters got out, not certainly on the secondary roads. So yeah, the pedestrians on pavements, etc. This is why the NHS comes under pressure when you get this type of weather occurring, simply because you get many slipping cases. People just walk out the door, you know, and 5 minutes later they're on the backside because essentially it's hard to walk, and it is. So what's coming, and by the way, what's coming and what's going to stay, because the latest charts that I'm looking at in front of me here, it continues very wintry for the next 10, 12, 14 days. There might not be an end to this for 20 days odd. So I think we better get used to it. And within that, there will be more snowfall. So this is turning into something. The cold air, the big cold block that's now on, the Arctic block that's come down, is going to take some shifting. The Atlantic is struggling to get in and probably will not get in. So there you go. There's a warning going forward that this could well last.
Jim, how well or not well kitted out are we for weather like this in this country, with gritters and snowplows and all the rest of it?
Yeah, I think we're better than we used to be. That's absolutely the case. Certainly in the last few years, we've got to the point where I think the warnings go out there. That's your first. To be warned is to be forearmed.
Oh yes,
and that's essentially, you know, the main thing. But obviously, the people who are in those services that look after the infrastructure, if you like, it's better than it was, but we're not there in terms of the general weather picture, the extremes that we're seeing. And by the way, you just did a programme on farmers and forage. Going back on that a little bit, you know, the extreme summer that we had, spring and summer, the warmest stroke hottest and sunniest on record going back to the mid-1600s. The point about that is that farmers suffered massively, 800 million quid, and yet we've got somebody like Farage who's denying climate change. So the two don't go together.
Is Nigel, is he denying it, Jim, or is he saying that we have it and a reform government would respond to it differently?
No, he's shrugging his shoulders and saying, "I don't know." Tice is quite differently. He's coming on the denial side. Look, I've had debates with these pair in the past. I'd love to get a debate on your programme with either one of them,
happy to do that,
or whatever else, on climate change. Let's just do it. Let's just see where they stand, because he's doing farmers no favours whatsoever with his denial, and that denial, it comes from the root of oil and fossil fuel donations, etc., etc. So look, you know, what we're going forward to now is a different scenario. It's all about cold, it's all about ice, it's all about snow. We're in that now for the next several days, as I've just mentioned. So I hope people will listen, heed the warnings, make sure that they take, you know, weather is hugely impactful on our lives, bar nothing else. You talked about it when you got up this morning. You know, I'm sitting here with a cup of hot coffee, etc. We all change gear when the weather changes in all different phases. And I think if we appreciate the weather more, and certainly the extremes of it, we'll get on better as a nation.
Lovely to have you on the show, and may I wish you a happy new year. Here's to many more on-air encounters, Jim. Thanks for getting up early to tell us about the weather. Possibly 20 days of snow and ice lie ahead, says Jim Dale, who's a senior meteorologist at British Weather Services. Folks, will Labour ever stop the boats? That's next.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, are taking that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Dolan's dispatch coming at 8 a.m. My predictions for the new year. But let's talk about this issue about Labour and the boats. Will they ever tackle illegal immigration? Have we had Judy? I think have we had Judy? Let's take a listen to Judy on this issue. Judy, take it away.
Hello, it's Judy from Altofts, West Yorkshire. The government could stop all the benefits going to people who just enter this country illegally or legally, etc. All they've to do is pass a law overnight, like they did with COVID. They can do it if they want, that nobody gets any benefits, social housing or legal aid unless they've lived and worked in this country for 10 years. That should sort the men out from the boys. But this government won't do it. He's a globalist. I think he's trying to wreck this country, actually. Thank you.
You're not the only one that thinks that, Judy. Brilliant voice note. What about Tristan? Take it away, Tristan.
Mark, this is Tristan in Bedford. Well, last more day, Happy New Year and all that. The thing is, the problem we have now is that we're in a situation now where people, if they say the truth, they're demonised. Truth is now hate speech. Because if you say the truth about the grooming gangs, you say the truth about immigrants, you say the truth about net zero, you say the truth about any of this contentious subjects and these contentious issues, you're wrong, you're this, you're that, and it's now hate speech. So the thing is, yes, facts don't care about your feelings, but now if you do say the truth, if people don't like hearing that truth, is now considered hate speech, and that is where we are. This government have incentivized this in every single which way. You know, great show. Cheers.
Tristan, you are so right. Truth is now hate. We're living in an Orwellian nightmare. That was a lovely voice note, and it's always a highlight of the show. The switchboard is filling up as well. Dolan's dispatch on the way, my predictions for 2025. Last voice note for now on will Labour ever stop the boats? Take it away.
Morning, Mark and Paul. As a former human rights lawyer, Starmer couldn't possibly have said, stop the illegal migrants. So he had to say that mantra, smash the gangs. He's so dense, you can't even see it's like a chicken and egg, which came first. Or, as Frank Sinatra sang, love and marriage. You can't have one without the other. Stopping the boats is fairly easy. Those intruders are obviously quite happy to make one single payment to a smuggler, knowing that when they get to the other side of the channel, they'll never have to pay for anything else in their lives. So, stop the gravy train and you'll stop those boats. Thanks. This is from Dallas in Botswana.
There you go. Listen, Dallas, great message. Love to keep those coming. 0344 499 1000. Will Labour ever stop the boats? But at 7:50 in the morning, will this year be an annus horribilis for Prince Harry? Let's get the views of the editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths. Good morning, Charlotte.
Morning.
Happy New Year to you. Will it be an unhappy New Year for Harry?
Oh, well, I think the first thing that might happen is his security review will be carried out. Now, if that's a good result for him, and it might be, then he is going to have a wonderful year because it means he can come back over here more often. And that's been a real kind of sticking point for him. He hasn't been able to bring his kids over to meet his dad, and he really wants to. So if he gets his security review, I actually think could be an okay year for Harry, surprisingly, after many bad ones.
If that security issue is resolved, is it likely that Charles would welcome a visit from the young family?
I think welcome is probably too warm a word. I think he definitely does want to meet his children, his grandchildren, and he hasn't seen them since 2022. I think with the Harry thing, he does want to make up with his son. He apparently thinks aren't amazing between him and William at the moment. So actually Harry's kind of looking in kind of a good light by comparison. But I think what happens is Harry kind of gets imposed on him and he has to sort of go along with it because he can't be seen to be rejecting his son, especially as he's got cancer. And he doesn't want to actually have hostile relations. But Harry kind of swoops in. And I think he'll do this a lot more in 2026 and kind of arrives and sort of lets it be known that he wants to see his dad and leaves his dad with little choice. But what I'd like to see in 2026 for the King's sake is that to transition into him actually wanting to see his son and inviting him rather than kind of having him imposed on him.
So do you think there's a chance that the grandchildren and Charles will meet this year? We obviously had the Clarence House face-to-face summit in September of this year. So do you think that Archie and Lily will likely fly over in 2026?
I think I'm going to put that on my prediction list. Yeah, I think that's something that could happen. Possibly not until later in the year, but I think it could happen by the end of the year for sure.
And then here's the million-dollar question. Will Meghan be joining them?
I don't think so. I don't think we'll see Meghan here in 2026. I think she might come in 2027 for the Invictus Games, if they're still together and everything's going well between them, which I'm sure it is. But I don't think she'll come over. No, I don't think she ever wants to step foot in this place again because, she will get booed, possibly by members of the royal family to her face, if not the public. But the Invictus Games in 2027 is going to be quite a big deal for Prince Harry, and that's in Birmingham, so she will come back for that. because it would just look so odd if she didn't. But I think it would be a highly controlled visit. I don't think she'd even leave Birmingham. I certainly don't think we'll see her strolling around the streets of Kensington, you know, like we used to in the old days. And I definitely don't think she'll ever move here. But I know that it's on Harry's list of things to do is to spend many more weeks here every year.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? So would you say the Clarence House Summit overall was regarded as a success? I mean, do you think the King felt that he's dipped his toe back in the water of a relationship with Harry and that he's happy to pursue this further in the new year?
I do think exactly that. I have a feeling that the aides around him, and certainly Prince William, are frustrated that it's actually going along quite well. It's going along at a glacial pace, though, I would say. I think that meeting in September was followed by a Teams call, maybe a phone call. I suspect there was one over Christmas. I need to find that out, actually. But, you know, it's not like they are chatting every day and they're Zooming every day and it's all warm and fuzzy between them. But I think Charles would see it as a PR win. It was a bit of a PR win, actually. And I think he would be happy to get to know his son again, you know, next year, because he's winding down his treatment. He has gone through hell these last 18 months with his cancer. And, you know, what father wouldn't want to reunite with their son?
Why is King Charles potentially in a more forgiving mood than William?
I think because Charles has been through all of this before, you know, especially in the 90s with Diana, you know, the perceived troublesome wife, the perceived PR media troubles. Not that Diana was, you know, as bad as Meghan or anything, for sure. But I think he just takes a bigger view. I think he takes a longer view, King Charles. And I think he is a very intelligent man. He's very well read. He's very interested in religion and spirituality. I just think he sees the bigger picture, and he doesn't see them being at war as useful to the institution or the firm, or even for his own kind of spiritual well-being, as it were.
Well,
William's not there yet.
We know that's exactly it, and William is still furious with his brother. I mean, there's a lot of bitterness and resentment there.
Yeah, and a lot of the pain that Harry and Meghan caused the royal family was directed really at William and at the late Queen, I think. I think they gave the Queen no end of grief at the end of her life. And yeah, it was a lot to do with William and, you know, the famous dog bowl fight and things that went on between them that, to be honest, haven't been reported and may never be reported. There are elements to the row I don't think we know about and we may never know fully about. But I do know that what went down between them is unlikely to be repaired ever. I'd say it's as likely as William will make up with Prince Andrew as he will with Prince Harry.
Fascinating, isn't it? And what about the Sussexes over in California? They've just parted company with another PR chief, Meredith Maines, and also a stalwart at the charity Archwell. Was it James Holt that's moved on, who was quite a close confidant of Harry? Meanwhile, we don't know whether there are going to be any new Netflix shows for Meghan. How do you see 2026 panning out for the couple as a brand?
As a brand, I think it will be an annus horribilis. I think Meghan is not in for an easy ride. She's lost all her staff. Archwell has been rebranded and renamed, and people are starting to look very closely at Archwell and think, you know, what actually is going on? Why did you go to Colombia and spend tens of thousands on expenses but only donate 8,000 to the cause? 8,000. I think a lot of that microscope is going to cause Meghan grief this year, and Harry, but I think particularly for Meghan, because she set her expectations so high at becoming this global brand and it all being about her, and the series was all about her and how, you know, relaxed and laid back and sweet she is with her friends and family. And unfortunately, in the late 2025, we just realised that was not true. You know, her dad nearly died. He had his leg amputated. She did not fly over to the Philippines to see him in hospital. And really, that brand just completely unravelled because it was based on, I think, a false narrative, which is that she's kind of this homely, jeans-wearing, barefoot, relaxed mom, when actually she's a canny businesswoman. She's an actress. She's pretty, you know, canny. You know, those things aren't bad traits. I just think she needs to own up to them and just be herself, because there is probably a market for that in America. I don't think there is in the UK. I think she's a little bit too manipulative for us to stomach her in the UK. But if she wants to be the sassy actress from Suits again, maybe she'll have some success in 2026. But this lifestyle brand, I just don't think will come to anything in 2026. And we've already seen it unraveling with the Netflix deal basically coming to an end.
Yes, and it can't all be plain sailing in a marriage if the finances aren't great. Briefly, Charlotte, that's an issue, isn't it? That, you know, the Netflix deals appear to be drying up. Harry gets the odd speaking engagement. They're not swimming in income, are they?
They're not at all. And I think that's got a lot to do with why they let so many members of staff go, all these PR men and James Holt, as you say. I think it's all to do with really slimming down their spending this year. And I think she's desperate to keep hold of the house. And you know, the problem is it's ruining Harry's relationship with his father, or Harry's reconciliation with the royal family, because people can't help but say, OK, well, does he really love his dad? Or is this because he's cash-strapped and he needs a few more quid out of his old man?
So astute. Charlotte, brilliant to see you again. Happy New Year. We'll see you again soon, Editor-at-Large at the Mail on Sunday. Will Labour ever stop the boats? This is Talk Breakfast. It's good to be back.
Libya has become a major transit route for refugees and migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, and many of them come through Libya dreaming of getting to the UK, particularly from Sudan, where there has been a civil war waging for the last 2 years. And those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the Channel crossing as the dangerous bit. But actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many, many tens of kilometres have to be covered on foot by these migrants. And as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness. Please understand the scale of what we are dealing with here with very, very limited resources. Once again, you know, people come in from charities, from NGOs, they use warm words, and the authorities here told me the only thing that we ever get is maybe a few toothbrushes and some nappies for the babies.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's 3 minutes past 8. Top of the morning, I'm Mark Dolan. This is Talk Breakfast. A very happy new year to each and every one of you. I hope you had a good Christmas. I wish you all of the very best for 2026, a healthy, happy and prosperous new year. And we've got so much work to do this year. Breaking this morning, reports are coming through that President Donald Trump has ordered strikes on sites inside Venezuela as a national emergency has been declared. This is from US officials speaking to CBS News. Trump strikes Venezuela. Meanwhile, he threatens to deal with the autocratic Iranian regime. We're on the verge, potentially, of a peace deal in Ukraine. And, of course, we have a ceasefire in Gaza. Is the world now a safer place under President Donald Trump? Also this morning, nightclub owners have been interviewed by police and could face manslaughter charges as the Swiss tragedy sees 40 dead and over 100 badly injured. We've got the inside story. Reform UK votes to jail grooming gang rapists for life. We'll get reaction. And an Islamist killer wins a £250,000 battle over his human rights. But does anyone care about the human rights of foreign criminals? Plus, as Sir Keir Starmer's plan to smash the gangs lies in tatters, with 70,000 people having entered the country illegally since he became Prime Minister, will Labour ever stop the boats? And how about this for a scandal? 40,000 sick notes are handed out by GPs and health professionals every single day. Economic activity due to ill health is costing you and I £212 billion a year. So, do we call time on sick note culture? Is it being abused? Have you got stories? Let me know. 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. You can listen to us on the radio, DAB+, in-app or online. Or you can watch the show. Just head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. Here I go, giving you a bit of a wave on a Saturday morning. How bad is the weather where you are? Will Labour ever stop the boats? And should we call time on Sick Note Britain? Those are the big topics of the day. My phone number is 0344 499 1000. As the saying goes, let's talk. And at 6 minutes past 8 on a Saturday morning, it's time now for Dolan's Dispatch. Happy New Year, folks. Or is it Unhappy New Year? After all, how on earth are we going to get through the next 12 months? I'll be honest with you. We are like kidnapped passengers on a hijacked plane with an ill-equipped pilot in Sir Keir Starmer, co-pilot Reeves to one side of him, and Lieutenant Lammy on the other. Yikes! And to keep the aeroplane metaphor going, a crash is likely going to come. The direction of travel for the economy has been mapped out by air traffic control. With growth non-existent, investment down, businesses shuttering and wealth creators fleeing the country. Whilst the odometer reading in Captain Starmer's cockpit shows the needle moving upwards for inflation, unemployment and the cost of borrowing. The debt is now so high, our ears are literally popping. On landing in Downing Street, Captain Starmer said he would smash the gangs. Well, 70,000 undocumented individuals, mostly young men, have since landed on our shores. Some will have criminal backgrounds, a few may have terror links, many will have a different attitude towards women and the values of a free, liberal Western society. Given the noticeable absence of brain surgeons, doctors and engineers in those perilous dinghies, those who are granted leave to remain, which will be the majority, may enter criminality and the black economy, whilst others will at best be doing low-paid work and therefore will be a burden on the taxpayer for generations to come. Amazingly, this government really seems to want to fly the plane, the metaphorical airplane, into the mountains with a workers' rights package which will make living hell for businesses who are already collapsing under the weight of red tape, regulations and taxation, making it so hard for businesses to do what they're actually supposed to do, which is to trade, to employ people, to invest and to generate national income. The forthcoming assault on landlords will see many sell up, making it harder for tenants to find accommodation, and the additional costs on landlords will see rents grow up. Welcome to the law of unintended consequences. Like the egregious farmers' tax, which has seen over 2,000 family farms shut down since its announcement. The pathetic, insufficient and belated U-turn will do nothing for bereaved families whose worried relatives have taken their own lives in anticipation of this government's latest cash grab. This year of 2026, we'll have to contend with the government doubling down on net zero, whilst the United States and even the European Union begin to step away from this doomed and ruinously ideological project. And this year, we will have to contend with a government that cancels elections, that censors free speech, that plans Orwellian digital IDs, a government that labels patriots as extremists, that thinks the wearing of a dress bestows upon a man womanhood as it drags its heels on the Supreme Court's clear definition of biological sex. And this year, we will have to contend with a government that thinks that you can tax your way to prosperity. Amazingly, things could get even worse if Captain Starmer takes an early parachute. Get your sick bag ready and buckle up for the very likely return of the ultimate trolley dolly, Angela Rayner, the hostess with the least S, at which point we're going the same way as Pan Am. So until the next election, we'll have to tolerate the equivalent of a bumpy Ryanair flight to Alicante, where you pay for your bag, buy a sandwich with 1/4 of an ounce of ham in it, and get charged £1 million to print out your boarding pass. For the next 12 months, expect air turbulence, expect the engines to fail, and brace yourselves for the crash position, because whoever's flying, we're going down. This Labour government are plain stupid. 0344 499 1000, your reaction to today's Dolan's Dispatch. Matthew is in Warrington. Good morning, Matthew.
Morning. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. Are you worried about 2026? Because I am.
Yeah, very worried. I don't think that Starmer and his bunch of cronies want to stop the boats. They just want to keep them coming in. The HMOs that are popping up everywhere or being developed in all these terraced houses, ruining our beautiful streets.
Yeah.
They're all being offered, all these capital investors that are investing money in and buying them for cash, ripping the hearts out of these terraced houses and turning them into 6 bed sits and getting a guaranteed 6.5-year contract at £650 a room. It's scandalous. So they've got they don't want to stop these boats. They're just going to keep pouring it in, and then we're going to get bled dry. We're going to go bankrupt. We're going to go hand in glove to the World Bank in Europe, and he'll want us to go back into the European Union. He's got a plan. He's going to try and push it all through in the next 2 years. Hopefully, when we have the big vote in May, that'll start the ball rolling a little bit, and maybe, but we need a few more by-elections. We need to let these people know that the British people are not putting up with it anymore, Mark.
Matthew, why do you think, though, that a sitting British Prime Minister would actively seek such damage on the country? If you think it's a plan, why is it a plan?
Because he's not a Prime Minister for Great Britain. He's a Prime Minister for Europe. He'd love to be the President of Europe. He's got and all the people behind it. He doesn't care about the country. He doesn't care about the farmers. He doesn't care about the union. He's not really a royalist. You know, he doesn't care about the army. The only thing they're interested in is the NHS, and the only way they think they can fix the NHS is by pouring money into it rather than making it more efficient and expanding it. He's never worked. He's a lawyer. He's never had his hands dirty. He's never been down a manhole or he's had put his arm down the toilet to unblock it because his kids have dropped too much toilet roll down. Yeah. He's never ever got his fingernails dirty. He's married to a Jewish woman, and he has complete contempt for a race of people that were persecuted 80 years ago, and he's married to one of them. That tells you what kind of person he is. And all that bench, the only people who benefit in Great Britain at the moment is if you've come over on a boat or you're an extremist and you get everything on a plate. It doesn't matter. You know, we've got poor people. It's shanking in Warrington today. It's absolutely freezing. We've got people sleeping in doorways, and we can't put them in hotels. But we can put people who can travel all the way across the world and pay thousands of pounds to get across. If they can pay thousands of pounds to get across on a dinghy, then they can pay thousands of pounds for legal aid. Because if I need to go really, I've got to pay for it. So why are these people getting paid for? Stop the legal aid. Stop picking them up out of the sea. Just let them. Just leave them, and then they'll soon stop. And it's not all just about my immigrants. It's about the taxation. He's got us by the throat, and he's slowly twisting us all around the neck, slowly choking us all, because they just want our money and just spend it. We've got net zero, which is the biggest waste of time. You know, when I didn't realise they had the ozone 40 years ago when I was in school, they said plant more trees. Well, plant trees, that'll sort the ozone out. You know?
And Matthew, we've actually got, it's my understanding, the planet is greener than it's ever been, partly because of increased carbon emissions.
Well,
because it turns out, isn't it, I'm no biology expert, Matthew, but I think the trees quite like carbon, don't they? Isn't that their main source of energy?
Yeah. And they throw it back out. So plant more trees, make it more, you know, we've got all this empty land and empty space, put trees in it, it'll help with the drainage, because we've got an infrastructure, our drainage system's Victorian. Yeah, we're expanding. Our roads are Victorian, some even are Roman. We've got too many cars on. We've got cars, but the roads can't take them. So what they want to do, they want us to make us walk. But they've built all the shopping centres. They've killed the town centres off, so people don't go to town. If you want to go shopping, you're not going to get on a bus and drive to the retail park on the edge of town and try and get on a bus with 20 bags of shopping. People use the cars. It's the whole psychology. Everything they're doing is wrong, and the more they do it, the more. Farage, a reform, doesn't have to do it. He just sits back and rubs his hands, because the Labour government are walking into a massive, massive loss, and it's sad. It's sad. We want, you know, Great Britain is great, and we've got a wonderful nation here, and we should be proud of what we got. We've got a fantastic union, and we need to be focusing on that. And all he's doing, he doesn't want that. He wants us to be part of the European Union, not the Great Britain Union. And it's a sad state of affairs. And as soon as these people are gone, the better. You know, you want to get rid of our civil rights with the courts. And
jury trials, digital ID, censorship.
Yeah. And you look at all the judges. What kind of judge would give a murderer of two people, and attack a prison officer? What does that tell you, the prison service and the police service? That if you get attacked by an Islamic extremist or just a complete crank, right, he's going to get $7.5 grand and you're going to get nothing. You just get like, oh, okay, well done, get back to work as soon as you can. We're praising the bad people and not praising the heroes, the people who go out there in the day and face violence and have to go and sort these people out. They're too scared. The soldiers don't want to go and do anything because they're frightened they'll get a letter through the door in 20 years' time that they did something wrong in Afghanistan or in Northern Ireland. The country is run by left-wing, loon ball lawyers. And, you know, Yvette Cooper said it when she turned around and said that the migrants have more rights than the indigenous British people. She said it in her own words.
Yes.
What was that?
Yeah.
She did say it.
Well, she did, and I've seen Bridget Phillipson say it as well on Sky News. I mean, there's an expression, Matthew, credited to the economist Adam Smith, and this is in regard to that story you mentioned, a double murderer who takes a prison officer hostage. He's put in solitary confinement because he's a dangerous man. He gets a payout of $7.5 grand, paid for by you and I, because he's become depressed as a result of his punishment, in a court case that will cost us $250,000. And this phrase from Adam Smith is as follows, and I think it ties in with what you said, Matthew. Compassion for criminals is cruelty to the innocent.
Completely. What about that poor family where they've got two of the sons being murdered by him?
Yeah.
What about the prison? More importantly, what about the prison officer who doesn't earn a lot of money, goes into work every day under the threat of being attacked? That money should go to him. Give him the $7.5 grand. Why is he getting legal aid?
And a third of $1 for the legal costs. It's quite wild, isn't it? I mean, Matthew, just to offer a degree of balance, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, will argue that he's rid his party of the scourge of anti-Semitism, chucked out a lot of anti-Semites. He'll also argue that he's got a big mandate to improve the country, that he's a patriot, and that most of the problems that we face are as a result of the Tories. What would you say to that, Matthew?
You know what? I've just seen Lord Lucan going past me on Shergar. Utter rubbish. Come on. Is
that a pig flying in the air, by the way?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, anti-Semite. He can't even criticise the rape gangs. He won't criticise certain religions for what they're doing. And let's be honest about it. He will not criticise the Muslim population because that's where his core vote is. And it's wrong. I feel so sorry for the Jewish community. I don't really know any Jews. There's not really many Jews. And what the Jewish people I've met are absolutely lovely people. I don't understand why the hatred is for them. You know, they're just normal people. Most people just want to go out, work, make sure your family's in good health, you pay your bills, you pay your taxes, and you live your life to the full and hope that your children go on. And that's how the world should be. This is what Britain should be about. And it's not like that. We're losing our identity. You know, I see people. The English language is coming like second. People don't want to learn the English language. The only people who've come into this country and with open arms and adapted to it is all the people from Hong Kong. Was it 60,000, 120,000 got visas? We've got a large community of Hong Kong people, and they don't make no noise. They're opening little restaurants. They've got little stores. They're very polite. You know, so if they can do it, why can't the people who are coming over?
Well, this is exactly right. And that's why people are not against immigration as such. It needs to be the correct level of immigration and the right sort of people who will make a contribution to the country. Why can't there be rules, Matthew, about the types of people that we welcome?
Well, you should come into the country and you'd be sat in the room and go, OK, why you're being processed? This is our rules. This is our values. We're a Christian nation. We respect women. And we treat people with respect, and we have manners. We're polite. We speak the English language. We tolerate different religions. We do not criticise people. And if you abide by them rules, then you might get a passport. You might get citizenship. You work. You don't get benefits. It's the whole setup's wrong. It's terrible.
And the incentives are wrong. The incentives are wrong, aren't they? Matthew, before I let you go, can I ask you what you think about like the next couple of years? Will there be a Britain to rescue at the next election? How much damage can be done, do you fear?
I think there'll be a lot of damage. I think there'll be no money in the bank. So whoever, I don't think reform will get in outright. I do think there'll be a coalition, which might be a good thing in hindsight, because might need that. A Tory reform needs, because Green Party and the Labour and the Lib Dems, they're all going to gang up against reform. I joined reform. I became a member early on this year because I believe in what they're saying. I have voted Labour in the past. I have voted Tory in the past. I vote for what I think is best for the country, and I do think that reform is the best for the country. But I do fear that when they do take over, which is only a matter of time, there'll be the country is such a state that it's going to take a long time to recover. We've got no international standing. Trump doesn't care about Starmer. America's not bothered about us. They're laughing at us. Europe are laughing at us. We used to be one of the top nations in the world, the top 6, top 2. It's always Great Britain, America, France, Germany. We're not in that reckoning anymore. We're just laughed at. And this stupid Prime Minister jumps on his plane and walks around like a lapdog behind these leaders, and he's useless. Absolutely useless, and they're all laughing at us, and it's fearful. I fear for my children who can't buy houses. You know, I've got a 21-year-old son, a 16-year-old daughter. And are they ever going to get a mortgage? Are they ever going to be able to afford anywhere? Are they going to have an education system for my grandchildren when they come into the world? Are we going to have a national health service? Because it's just getting. You can't see any improvement. You only have to look back 20 years. When Blair was in and he was doing all the hospitals up and he reformed the education system, there was a bit of positivity, but now it's just getting worse. And it's not just Labour have done it, the Tories done it before.
It's the political establishment, isn't it, Matthew?
It's the bubble, the London bubble. They don't know what's going on beyond the M25. They don't know what the working class, middle class people are. And it's always been the working class person that's struggled. Now it's the middle class person, the people, middle management, the guys who, your operations managers, your midwives, and they're now starting to feel the bite. And that's where people are putting their head above the parapet and saying, no more. We're not doing this no more. Enough's enough. You go down your streets and there's gangs of men from different countries just looking at your daughters. And it's fearful. If we had another war with Russia now, do you think all the men would go away and leave the daughters and wives in this country, the people that are to be protected from the people? Because it is frightening. They have no respect for the women. They have no respect for women at all. If I made my wife walk behind me 10 foot behind me, or put a mask overhead.
Yeah,
I'd get strung up, but it's not British.
It would be if you covered your wife's head or didn't let her go to a swimming pool. That would be domestic abuse, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Or wouldn't let my daughter go and learn to swim or be allowed to be educated. I'm a delivery driver. I told you this before. And a number of houses that I knock on every day, and there's young kids in there from all backgrounds who don't go to school. It's frightening.
Yeah, and it would be politically incorrect to call it out, or the R word, wouldn't it? Matthew, can I tell you, it's been the greatest privilege to take your call. Do you want to just, what's your final thought on this before we move on?
More people need to listen to talk and listen to presenters like yourself and wake up to what's going on, because the problem is too many people have got their head in the sand. We will get through this. It will get better. At what point, I don't know, but we've just got to keep believing. We've got to go and do the votes. We've got to protest. If people want to protest, then protest in the right fashion. Don't be violent. Don't give them the excuse. Correct. But let's everyone needs to go out and vote in May and let them know that the British people have had enough and keep believing, because once you stop believing, then there's no hope.
Matthew, Happy New Year to you and to your family, to your daughter and your father. Your daughter and your brother. They've got an amazing dad. And thank you for the vote of confidence in Talk, because what we're going to do and what I'm going to do with this platform Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And I know my colleagues as well, Julia and Jeremy and Kevin and Alex and Peter and everyone, is we're going to use this platform to represent the concerns of the British people, and I will never stop doing that. In fact, I will die doing it. It is 8:25. You are listening to Talk Breakfast.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, have taken that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Listen, let's get to our head-to-head debate now. I'm delighted to welcome in the studio. Actually, let me bring you just some breaking news before we get to that. Reports that President Trump has ordered strikes on Venezuela as a national emergency has been declared, US officials have told CBS. Is very interesting. Trump very concerned about what's happening in Venezuela. He's also threatened tough action on Iran as the public protest about 50% inflation. I mean, we talk about a cost of living crisis here. Basically, the Iranian regime is in meltdown, as is the economy. People are taking to the streets. Donald Trump says he's got their back. Is the world a safer place with Trump in the White House? We'll get to that shortly. Reacting to the big stories of the day, Matthew Goodwin-Freeman, Conservative councillor, and Andy Williams, political commentator. Good morning, boys.
Good morning.
Andy, did you have a good Christmas?
I had a lovely Christmas, thank you.
What did you get? Was
nice.
it a family affair?
It was, small family affair, and actually on Boxing Day, I was in a pub near Winchester and I bumped into 3 Talk listeners, viewers, at the bar.
Well, that's good. And were they kind in their remarks?
They said, we don't agree with you, we'll be voting for Nigel, we know you won't, but will you give it a good go, or something like that.
Oh,
so
well,
they were very nice.
Tell me the name of the pub, I'll visit that later. That's
it was
great.
the Otter.
The Otter sounds like an excellent pub, isn't it? And how about you? What did you get up to this Christmas?
I spent most of it in here, I think. It was good fun on here, doing a couple of shows with all my Christmas jumpers, but back to the traditional Union Jack now. But yeah, really good Christmas. Spent it with family, friends and loved ones, and probably spent a bit too much time on Twitter.
Did you avoid politics over Christmas? Because I can tell you that Donald Trump came up round our table and it ended in a degree of acrimony, I can't lie.
I had a quite lengthy conversation about the war in Ukraine with my father-in-law, and I took a look at my phone and it was 3 minutes to 3 in the morning. So we had a good old putting the world to rights session over a brandy or two, which I think that's what Christmas is all about, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I know people say you shouldn't talk politics, but politics is our family. Like, literally, you have to talk politics at Christmas. So the one time you get everyone together and have a real thrash out of politics. So yeah, it was good fun.
Most definitely. Listen, Iran has threatened Donald Trump after he said that the American forces were locked and loaded in order to tackle any unrest or any attacks on the Iranian people as they protest about the meltdown in the economy. Meanwhile, we've got this what appears to be a US intervention in Venezuela. Has the world become a safer place with Trump in the White House, Matthew?
Well, I'm actually speaking at a protest later on about freeing Iran from the terror that it's got at the moment. I've been long campaigning for this. I work for a member of parliament called Bob Blackman, who's actually sanctioned by the Iranian government for calling out what they're doing. Let's not forget, we talk about the cost of living crisis here in the UK. Iran is rationing energy supplies, having power cuts daily to keep the country going, inflation at over 50%, oppression of even just free speech. You turn up to a protest, you could end up being executed. It is absolutely unacceptable. And let's not forget, Iran is the head of the snake when it comes to the IRGC, to Hamas, Hezbollah. All of the issues that we're facing in the Middle East come back to the terror in Iran. So if we can free Iran, we free most of the Middle East as well.
Well, yes, and of course we've got the ceasefire in Gaza and a potential peace deal in Ukraine in the offing, Andy. So notwithstanding your concerns perhaps about Donald Trump's political style, is the world a safer place with him in the White House?
I don't think it's safer. I don't think it's any less safe either. I don't disagree with anything Matthew said about Iran, by the way. What I think is interesting, though, about what's happening, or the breaking news this morning, is that one of the central doctrines of the MAGA movement was that America would be America first and no longer get involved in, effectively, in conflicts or in challenges abroad. And in Trump's first term, he pretty much adhered to that, and obviously we pulled out of Afghanistan under the Biden administration. But this looks to be a return to sort of neoconservative Bush-style policies where America is going to be intervening left, right and centre in the world, which, you know, the jury's out, but his MAGA supporters are not going to like this one bit.
Well, that strike on Iran before the Gaza ceasefire was very surgical, focused on a potential nuclear site. Now he's standing up for ordinary people on the streets in Iran with a regime that's likely toppling, an authoritarian regime. I mean, that's not the same as trying to create regime change under Saddam Hussein, is it? This is not George Bush, the sequel.
Not yet, but it's interesting that, yes, the surgical intervention in Iran, but now Venezuela, which looks to me as though A, Republican president bombs oil-rich country shock. You know, we've seen this story before. Yeah. And B, let's be frank, it's an ideological hatred of what's going on in Venezuela. Now, again, I'm not in favour of the Venezuelan government or what they're doing, and it's obviously disastrous what's happened to their economy, going from the richest country in South America to the poorest. Bad. Does that mean that President of the United States should be bombing them? I'm not so sure, and I'm pretty sure that MAGA folk will not like this at all. It seems to be a slippery slope back towards that neoconservatism we were talking about.
Interesting. What do you think about that?
I'm thinking, with America, do you not think Trump's saying, actually, we're going to lead on the world, we will be the ones who make the decisions, we'll be the ones who make the political headroom? I completely agree, completely different to his first term, where it was almost, you know, America out of here, we're focusing on ourselves. But now I think he sees an opportunity where he goes, right, we could solve the war in Ukraine, we could solve the situation in Gaza, we could topple the Iranian
that is absolutely the argument he would make.
He wants that credit, doesn't he, to his legacy? Because this is his last term, unless obviously he takes a very liberal view at the Constitution. This is his last term. He has to have a legacy, and his legacy, he wants to go out as the president that solved all of these issues, changed the world for the better, he'd argue, because he solved all these issues, conflicts.
Well, that's what he would say, but if you look back at the history, you know, Iraq, disaster, Afghanistan, bigger disaster, Taliban, we spent how many hundreds of billions, Taliban are back in charge. You know, should America really be intervening in South American politics? I mean, I'm not so sure. And as for the war in Ukraine, said he'd solve it in 24 hours. Here we are. You know, series of conferences. I admit it's complicated. I'm not suggesting, you know, nobody else has solved it, but he doesn't seem to be much closer to resolving
the political
conflict.
will was there to end the war in Gaza, which has been ended. A miraculous move. I never thought I'd see peace in the Middle East. It's happened under Trump.
Hang on. We've seen this is peace for now.
It's a fragile.
It's a very fragile ceasefire.
But obviously Trump, you know, the bad orange man, you know, was responsible for, you know, he sent a real estate entrepreneur to actually negotiate that peace deal. He was very firm with Hamas. He may get a peace deal across the line in Ukraine in the weeks ahead. Zelensky's back on board, quite happy with Trump's rhetoric, and he said that we're 95% there in terms of what Ukraine need. Donald Trump is a very good man, isn't he? A very decent man.
Businessman.
I personally, I know he's not I think he's a liar and a narcissist and a lunatic, but I feel a hell of a lot safer with him in the White House than Kamala Harris or anyone else.
Well, you're on the button on liar, narcissist and lunatic, that's for sure.
The left have been wrong to demonise him, haven't they?
You could deal with a liar and a narcissist. Do
you want to apologise now for all the negative rhetoric from the left about Donald Trump?
Well, I don't speak...
He's a good man.
I don't speak on behalf of the left, and I don't think he is a good man at all. I mean, for all sorts of reasons, I think he's a very bad man. Does that mean he's a bad president? Well, I think he is a bad man and a bad president. I don't think the world is any less safe with him in the White House, but I certainly don't think it's safer.
I think it's infinitely safer, isn't it? I mean, with two of the biggest wars of our time on the verge of being ended.
I mean, you've taken the words right out of my mouth. Ended the war in Gaza. I know it's a very, you know, ceasefire. It's very fragile, eggshells, but, you know, there's only so much that one person can do. The situation in Ukraine, I would plead to the President of the United States, please stop listening to Russia. Stop believing them. Stop trusting them. Putin will,
exactly.
You know, shake your hand on one hand and stab you with the other. It's just, we need to have Ukraine victorious in this. And so that's why in the last couple of days, seeing actually Zelensky be a bit more side, I hope he's been told some things by the US president that actually we're on your side and we've given up with Russia, you know.
But to that point, there is, let's be clear, there is no chance of, even if a peace deal is agreed, it won't be a peace deal that means Ukraine are victorious. That is not going to happen, right?
But Ukraine won't be Ukraine won't be they won't be overtaken by Russia, is the point. Well, there was a threat within 3 days of the war. Russia were marching in Kiev, right? That's the incredible place that we've got back to, where actually Ukraine could end up still being on the map.
Hang on, two things. So firstly, Trump has nothing to do with the fact that Russia failed to conquer Ukraine.
Well, apart from the billions and billions of aid given to Ukraine by America first and then Europe second.
They didn't do that in the first couple of days of the war. And secondly, you know, it's all well and good to say, well, you know, the Ukraine not overtaken by Russia. That's fine if you're in the 80% of Russia that hasn't been invaded. If you're in the 20% of Russia that will be Russia, that will be part of Russia under Putin's regime.
Well, I do not think any of the Ukrainian territory should be given to Russia.
Well,
that's where
Trump
I've been
wants.
saying.
That's
well,
what
I
Trump
said
wants.
Trump needs to actually go further and say, no, we're fully behind Ukraine, return to Ukraine's support.
He's not going to do that.
And we'll criticise that when it happens. But at the moment, we're still in the depths of negotiations and everything going on. My view is Ukraine has to be entirely victorious in this, and Russia needs to be told that, look, 4 years of war gets you absolutely nowhere. Not an inch, not a yard, not a mile.
Does anyone in this room think that Trump cares about people who live in the Donbass region? Because I don't.
Okay, fine. If you disagree, I'd like to think that Trump, someone who's ended so many wars already.
No. I'm just. Does anyone actually genuinely, hand on heart, believe that Trump cares about anyone who lives in the Donbass.
I think Trump hates killing. I think he's a good man. I think he's a deeply moral man. And I think the left need to apologise. I do.
No, you do.
I think that he's, for example, let me give you Kamala Harris, who was the presidential candidate for the Democrats, who was asked about the war in Ukraine. She never mentioned it in her speeches, how she would end it. It's all Trump talked about was basically tariffs and I'll end the wars, because he's a very decent man. I think the left should apologise for their demonising of the so-called bad orange man. But it's all about opinions. 8:38. Next up, will a failure to stop the boats unseat Keir Starmer this year? We'll debate that next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Zoe at 8:40 in the morning is very concerned about illegal immigration. Good morning, Mark. The pull factor will be massive now. Come to Britain. You'll now be eligible for a brand new home. Talk about cracking down. What a joke. How about some other messages coming in? Derek says, good morning, Mark. Navy on the boats, Air Force on helicopters, Army on the beaches. Do not let these people into our waters. Just stop them. Ban French fishing in our waters. No money paid to France. Sorted. Well, how about this from Vincent? Getting rid of the ECHR will strengthen our bond with the USA and Donald Trump, and it will stop the boats. Sharon says, good morning, Mark. Trump stopped the illegal immigrants in the US, so why can't Starmer do the same? It's obvious he doesn't want to do it. He just wants to let them all in at taxpayers' expense, never mind the human rights of the British people. I'll get to more of your messages on that shortly. But what do you think about that, Andy Williams? We've got figures from Leo McKinstry in the Sun newspaper, double-page spread, Smash the Gangs. 65,000 illegal immigrants have arrived since Labour's election in July 2024. 62 migrants per boat on average. 1,195 arrived in 19 boats on one day, which was May the 31st. When Keir Starmer said he was going to smash the gangs, he was lying, wasn't he?
No, he wasn't.
Yes.
No, he wasn't.
He had to be lying, didn't he?
He knew he couldn't.
We'll let you speak.
Thank you. He wasn't.
New Year's resolution.
I'll try.
He wasn't lying, but he did the same. He made the same stupid mistake that Rishi Sunak made, which is these pithy three-word slogans: "Stop the boats, smash the gangs." Get Brexit done. It's all a load of nonsense. It's the worst type of sloganeering politics, reducing everything to really simple solutions.
We got Brexit done.
Some of your, we got a version of Brexit done that's been bad and that actually has partly caused huge mass increase in net migration, among many other things, damage to our economy. We don't need to go back over that.
The high migration's got nothing to do with Brexit.
Net migration, legal migration absolutely does.
It's got zero to do with Brexit.
That's not true.
And the reason it's got zero to do with Brexit is because the rather left-wing woke Tory government didn't need to open the borders once we were out of the EU.
But Brexit happened, and a new immigration policy was designed around the Brexit deal, right? So the Brexit deal was done, new immigration policy, and the result of that immigration policy was net migration of 900,000.
Yes, and under Brexit we could have zero.
We could, but we didn't.
So it's not Brexit's fault, is it?
But it was the man who was jointly most responsible alongside Nigel Farage, Boris Johnson, for Brexit happening, who created that policy. If that's not a result of Brexit, I don't know what is.
Oh, it's the result of poor policy post-Brexit.
Yes, agreed. But it could
because
only have
Nigel Farage will have amazing power if he becomes Prime Minister.
But it could only have happened because of Brexit. It wouldn't have happened had it not been for Brexit. So I'm not saying it was inevitable, but it absolutely is a consequence of Brexit. And the man, one of the architects of Brexit, insofar there was any architecture, was Boris Johnson, who presided over this Boris wave. And by the way, it's very difficult to defend Labour's record, and we can talk about that.
I was just going to say, instead of talking about 4 Prime Ministers ago, why don't we talk about this Prime Minister?
Well, it is worth pointing out, and Matthew can say, since I'm sitting next to a Conservative councillor, that this is 9% down on 2022, when the Conservatives were in charge and had been in charge at that point for 12 years.
Absolutely, and it is 41% up on 2023, 13% up on 2024. The biggest drop actually came in 2023 when we had the Rwanda plan going through and saw a 33% drop because the country had a deterrent. This is the problem. We had 41,472 people come across on small boats. That's 41,472 people we have no idea about, no documentation,
half
no
of whom
information.
will stay.
Of course, and don't forget, according to all the Labour politicians, they're apparently majority women. Well, actually, 81% of them came over male. So I'm really sorry, but it's not true. Women and girls are being left, and it's the men who are coming over. This is what happens when you get rid of the Rwanda plan on day one and don't have a deterrent. We've seen this one-in, one-out deal. There's only 195 people who've been removed out that one-in, one-out. That's a boat, done. This is another £500 million given to the French to stand there and do nothing. We saw one video of a French police officer slashing a boat, and then the French police said, oh no, we can't do that anymore. I'm sorry, but Britain has got to start talking tough. We've actually got to suspend, I think, fishing rights with France. We've got to suspend some trade, actually stop this money and say if the French don't start stopping these boats, they are not getting this £500 million of British taxpayers' money. People are fed up of it. But to the criticism that, 9% down, well done Labour on the previous year, but it is still massively up from where we were heading with a deterrent in this country, that without a single flight taking off, numbers were down because people were scared they'd end up in
Rwanda plan was a magical success, wasn't it?
Not a single flight, and numbers were still down.
I'm being serious and I can assure you it was a magical success because it actually worked even before it began. That's how good it was. It might have been the single best foreign policy position this country has ever had, right, other than defeating Hitler. And I'll tell you for why. Because the Irish Taoiseach, who's a very respected man, complained about Rwanda before it happened because all of the migrants were going to the Republic, not the UK.
Yeah. Well, one of my actual colleagues is a former 2-time Irish Taoiseach, and I can tell you for sure he would say otherwise.
Well, was the Taoiseach lying then?
Well, we're talking about different...
I think it was Michael. Was it Michael?
Yeah, we're talking about different Taoiseachs. But anyway, I mean, firstly, I don't think any. I've never heard a single Labour politician say that a majority of people coming across on small boats.
Darren Jones said that he has seen with his own eyes that the majority of people in these boats are women and girls, which then was ripped apart for the following day.
Were they men that identified as women? Perhaps.
Who knows? Who knows?
If he did,
we'll have
Labour
to see.
love them.
I will check because if he did say that, that is absolutely far-fetched. I think most people recognise that the accurate figure is around a quarter of people who are coming across are either children, women or children, right? So we can assume that most of those women and children are not economic migrants, but that the other 75% are. So I work on the basis that 3 in every 4 people who are coming here are economic migrants, and they're coming here illegally, and that shouldn't happen.
Wow.
Now, in terms
of consensus, can we turn all of those people away?
No, because all of those people.
You were doing so well, Andy.
Come on, Andy, it's New Year.
But here's
New Year, new Andy.
Here's the problem: is that actually, as always with the right and the hard right, and I didn't say far right, but the hard right.
There's no such thing as a hard right.
Let's just slash.
You're either a conservative or you're not.
That's a complicated question. It's just slash and burn as always. It's like, well, we're out of the EU now, so the next thing we need to get out of is the ECHR, and the next thing we need to get is slash and burn.
This is good.
No nuance,
I love slash, I love burn.
Uncomplicated policy. And actually, human rights clearly exist outside of and existed before the ECHR. I'm not saying otherwise. I'm not saying if we don't have the ECHR, we won't have human rights.
Well, we'll have our own version, won't we?
But human rights are important. And I believe that the human rights of genuine asylum seekers who are genuinely fleeing persecution and war and rape and torture, and by the way, Reform's policy is that those people would be deported back to Afghanistan and Eritrea and Sudan to be raped and tortured, right? That is Reform policy. I don't think that is a good thing. And I think unfortunately, I think the price you pay to live in a civilised society, and yes, we need to be harder and tougher on economic migrants, but the price you pay is that we have to let some people in who maybe shouldn't be here, and that's why the one in one out deal. I know the numbers.
The true bit out loud.
I know the numbers are really. I know the numbers are really small on the one in one out deal.
195.
Yeah, exactly. But it is. But those are 195 people who are here who are genuine asylum seekers.
Fantastic. What about the other 41,000?
No, I know it's
200 and whatever who came last year.
I accept it's a small proportion.
The
last thing I was going to say is that if you're here as you are defending the Conservative record, you have to accept that this was not a problem when the Tories came into office. It became a problem.
Yeah, because I've said this before. People were coming in the back of lorries when the Tories came into office, and so the Tories brought in the checks at the borders and all these sorts of checks at the back of the lorries, HGVs, and that number basically went to zero. The point is then people went, oh, do you know what? We can get on a boat and come over here instead. I am going to continue the New Year's tradition of actually agreeing with you on a lot of things that you were saying there. I completely agree. If they are genuine asylum seekers who are just trying to get out of these war-torn countries, I agree. They've got to be taken in. Well, why didn't they claim asylum in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth or 15th country that they came through during Europe? I'm sorry, but it is because they know they can come to Britain, have tenuous links to this country. As soon as they get here, the majority of people claim asylum, but also say, oh, can I bring all my family over as well? It is a massive cost to the taxpayers. We have no deterrent in this country. The one in, one out is 195 people. That is one boat. One boat. That's it. Not even that. It's ridiculous. It is billions and billions of pounds being spent. The Tories messed up. I've hold my hands up. The Tories messed up on it.
Big time.
I'm not an MP. I've never been an MP. I'm not accountable for it. I've been coming on this show and others saying we need to suspend the $500 million to France, start saying to the French to actually do something about this, and if they don't, I'm sorry, but then we've got to start being tougher. I agree. As soon as that boot lands on the British sand, these people should be arrested, put onto a bus, taken to the nearest airfield and sent back. That is what America would do. That's what Britain needs to start doing.
Well, firstly, that contradicts your argument that we should be letting genuine asylum seekers in.
They can claim asylum in France or Germany, which they should have done under the European Convention.
And secondly, and I know that many, in fact, the vast majority of people listening to this will completely disagree with me.
Okay.
But I think that Donald Trump's policy is totally disgraceful and immoral. It does work, but this is the point: is I will be totally honest about the fact that there is a trade-off between does it work? Yes. Okay. Is it completely immoral? Also, yes. And I know which I'd prefer.
All right, listen, it's all about opinions. What's yours? 0344 499 1000. Next up, have Reform peaked?
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, are taking that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Listen, folks, it's very interesting, isn't it, what's going on in the country? 8:53. Reform UK are ahead in the polls, but have they peaked? Let's get reaction from my two excellent guests, Conservative councillor Matthew Goodwin-Freeman and Andy Williams, political commentator. What do you think, Andy? Have we reached peak Farage?
You'd be a confident man to predict that that was definitely the case, but I think it's possible. 3.5 years, which is the time between now and the next general election, is a very long time to sustain the strong momentum they had last year. They benefited last year from two historically useless major parties. I mean, if you think how terrible and unpopular Labour have been, Keir Starmer, the most unpopular Prime Minister in history, and then if you think how abject Kemi Badenoch, the most unprepared, unqualified major political party leader probably in British history. Of course they're on 30%, but actually if Labour claw back a couple of points, and if the Tories claw back a couple of points, and there's a sign that there's a little bit of life there maybe, then Reform are down to 26 and they're no longer forming a government. So I think it's very fragile. And the other thing is that it remains the Nigel Farage show. They don't have many other serious, credible people on the front line. I mean, I'm afraid, no disrespect to them, but this is going to sound extremely disrespectful, a front bench that includes Richard Tice, Andrea Jenkins and Nadine Dorries is a farce in a first world country.
Well, I would agree with you about Nadine Dorries, given the fact that she was Boris Johnson's biggest cheerleader.
Well,
Boris
so was Andrea Jenkins.
Responsible for the Boris wave, of course.
Indeed.
And Net Zero Zealotry.
Andrea Jenkins was given a damehood by Boris Johnson for being his number 2 fan after Nadine Dorries. So they do have a problem, which is they're taking in the dregs of the Tory party, like not smart, decent Tories who I respect, but the dregs, the people who were totally associated with the fag end, the failed end of the Conservative project. So I think that is a problem for them.
What do you think, Matthew? Has Farage peaked?
Everything is so volatile. They say a week is a long time in politics. As Andy said, we have 3.5 years till the next general election. The caveat is we have every single type of election before that. We have locals, devolved, Scotland, Wales, mayoral, London, all of it. There is every opportunity for Reform to win or be the best party in each of those elections and keep this momentum going. We have seen the polls near the end of the last year start to dip for Reform, a resurgence for the Conservatives under Kemi Badenoch since party conference. I mean, I certainly went to party conference praying that we'd start seeing a real proper leader from the Conservative Party, and since then, and her performances at PMQs, she's been absolutely stunning. I don't know where it was for the last year, but hey-ho. It is all to play for, but the momentum is with Reform. They're coming up with policies left, right and centre that the common person does agree with. I mean, they came up with something yesterday that child groomers will get life behind bars. I don't disagree with that. I think people think that's quite a common sense thing, taking a tougher stance. And even if it never ends up happening, it's a tough stance.
It's a gimmick, though, isn't it? It's an easy thing to announce that actually, people might agree with it, but does it tackle the root causes of why people are feeling unhappy in their lives, the cost of living, all of those sorts of things? No, it doesn't. It's very easy to say life sentence here, life sentence there. It doesn't actually change anything for people.
Well, it changes people for the victims of grooming gangs, the victims of child molesters and paedophiles. It changes something for people who think that crime should pay.
It changes the messaging towards these communities that have a proclivity to these crimes.
Yeah, perhaps at the margins, but I think if you're somebody who's disposed to running a child grooming gang, I don't think whether you go to prison for 20 years or life is going to make a difference.
Well, at the moment they don't go to prison at all because the councils cover it up. But the point is that what Reform are doing is starting to talk about what people are talking about, what people talk about in their pubs, what people say they're fed up with, things like that. They are talking about other issues than the Westminster bubble, and that is something that I actually quite respect. It's what the Conservatives have started doing recently. We've seen Robert Jenrick doing all of his videos, Kemi getting better at PMQs, but Reform were there first. Reform have been talking about these things first, so who knows, let's see. There's a long way to go.
There is indeed. I mean, is it a complicating factor that the Tories are now, you know, performing slightly better, that Kemi Badenoch's got her voice? Because this is, again, the right divided, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and divided parties fall. We saw that at the last election where the Conservatives were divided and Labour won, you know, a mile-wide majority, but an inch thick. There's all these talks about a Reform Conservative coalition or some sort of deal towards the election. Frankly, I say you need to wait until the election's called to see what happens, because whoever's the bigger party at that point has the power share. But at the moment, Reform are polling where they would form a majority, so frankly it's irrelevant what the Conservatives want or say. But we're seeing that change, and as Andy said, a couple of percentage points in either direction. We've seen the resurgence for the Greens as well. Labour are under threat too. This could all change. It could all change, whether it's in the Conservatives' favour, Reform's favour, your, whatever party's favour, or the Greens' favour.
Percentage chance that Starmer is still Prime Minister a year from now?
Zero. I think it's not zero. I think it's a toss-up. I think it's 50-50.
You think he's a what?
I thought you were going to say something else there.
You think he's a what?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Can I just tell you it's a family show?
Very good. No, I think
we'll clip that.
You know, if
you think that Keir Starmer is a massive toss-up? Wow.
Breaking news. Don't underestimate the power of inertia in the Labour Party.
Thank God. I think my addiction got me away with that one.
You're what, sorry?
Excellent. Careful. Andy Williams, Matthew Goodman-Freeman, great job. See you very soon. Keep it talk.
Libya has become a major transit route for refugees and migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, and many of them come through Libya dreaming of getting to the UK, particularly from Sudan, where there has been a civil war waging for the last 2 years. And those asylum seekers or economic migrants who make it from Sudan to the UK have a 99% chance of being given leave to remain. So I spent several hours talking to immigration chiefs here in Benghazi on the east side of Libya. The Libyan National Army has a very good grip on the immigration problem, albeit fighting against a huge crisis with limited resources. There is a very, very clear process of giving people proper health checks, the life-saving care that they need, and then working out where it is exactly that they've come from. Their message to the UK is that you are fueling this problem. You are effectively advertising a great new life for people from sub-Saharan Africa. They actually said, you know, what do you think happens when a guy from Sudan comes up through Libya and makes his way all the way to the UK and gets put in a luxurious hotel and provided with everything? And make no mistake, it is a perilous journey. We see it from the end point. We see the Channel crossing as the dangerous bit, but actually where these journeys begin is in the hot desert. Many tens of kilometres have to be covered on foot by these migrants, and as many as 1 in 4 do not make it. That means bodies in the desert. The Libyan authorities are having to recover bodies in the desert. About the UK and how much awareness. Please understand the scale of what we are dealing with here with very, very limited resources. Once again, you know, people come in from charities, from NGOs, they use warm words, and the authorities here told me the only thing that we ever get is maybe a few toothbrushes and some nappies for the babies.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Talk Breakfast. A very happy new year to each and every one of you, wishing you a healthy, productive and prosperous 2023. I'm delighted to say that as of next Friday, I'll be looking after this breakfast slot Friday, Saturday and Sunday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. It's a thrill, and we have got so much work to get through. Now, breaking news this morning reports that President Trump has ordered airstrikes on sites inside Venezuela as a national emergency has been declared. This, according to US officials, will bring you more as we get it. Meanwhile, nightclub owners have been interviewed by police and could face manslaughter charges as the Swiss tragedy at a ski resort sees 40 dead and over 100 badly injured. We've got the inside story, and we'll get reaction from an expert on disaster planning. Reform UK vote to jail grooming gang rapists for life. We'll get reaction, and an Islamist killer wins a £250,000 battle over his human rights. But does anyone care about the human rights of criminals who break the law, foreign criminals who have entered the country illegally? Plus, how bad is the weather going to get as we embark on the new year? And as it's revealed that almost 70,000 people have entered the country illegally since he became Prime Minister. What happened to smash the gangs? Will Labour ever stop the vote? And voice notes in just a moment, but with me in the studio, I'm delighted to welcome the Whitehall correspondent of the Sun newspaper, Sophia Slade. Sophia, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
Very good to have you in the studio. And those figures, aren't they, in today's Sun newspaper are damning about the Prime Minister's performance in regard to illegal immigration since he entered number 10. Smash the gangs. 65,000 illegal immigrants have arrived since Labour's election victory in July 2024. 62 migrants per boat on average, up from 53 in 2024 and 49 in 2023. Over 1,000 people entered the country illegally in 19 boats on one day. That was May the 31st. The direction of travel is not good for the Prime Minister when it comes to illegal immigration, is that?
No, it's not. And I think actually the figure that really cuts through for me, and I've been into the middle of the Channel on a boat and seen this happen.
Have you? Right.
Is the sex, the male, the female, the unknown.
Yeah.
81% male, and that's what I saw when I went out into the Channel and watched this sort of transfer of small boats. It was, I think off the top of my head, it was 74 men were on this boat,
right,
and there was one woman and a couple of children, which, you know, my gut sort of tells me the woman and children were probably there as a bit of cover to help the boat get off the beach, basically. And that I found really, really shocking. And I think this is the whole crisis with the small boats, we're seeing working age men, you know, 18 to 39.
Yes, it's in contradiction to the narrative that these folk are fleeing persecution from another country.
Yeah, I think, look, in all honesty, if I'd have seen a boat full of women and children, I'd have been in bits. I'd have been absolutely devastated to see that. But that's not what I saw when I went into the Channel.
No, and meanwhile, France threatens to arrest Brits who seek to intervene in the boat crossings. You've got the inside story. What's going on there?
This is, I mean, it's a really great story, actually. This is, so you've had these groups go over to France, sort of vigilante groups of blokes who've been slashing boats, who have been disturbing the migrants before they cross.
Yeah.
And I would never condone, you know, vigilante behaviour or anything like that. I think they're putting themselves in danger, and probably others as well. However, you know, there's obvious frustration from Brits, and I think where authorities fail, that's where vigilantes spring up. You know, this is on the authorities' head. And I was reading this morning and before I came in, and I remembered, and the one figure that sticks in my mind all the time, in 2023 we gave France £500 million to combat the migrant boats, and they haven't. You know, what, over 41,000 individuals crossed over in 2025. So what are they doing with that money? When people from Britain can go over and literally stop the boats, you do sort of question, have we really got value for money with the French there? So I think it's quite embarrassing, actually, and I think people will be frustrated to see, well, you can get out and arrest, you know, vigilantes, but you can't get out and stop the boats. What's going on there?
Do you think that some politicians and some folk in the media are in a bit of a bubble and are not aware of the real optics of these illegal crossings. Did it change your perception of the issue by being there at first hand and actually seeing it for yourself?
It did, yeah, it did. I didn't have particularly strong opinions on it. I thought it was, I thought the whole situation was quite tragic, but I think, like I said, just seeing a boat full of young working age men just changed my perspective a lot. And I think I'd have been really upset to see, you know, a boat full of vulnerable women and children.
Yeah.
But you know, they're all sturdy, you know, working age young men.
Yes, and you see them crossing the channel, and it's less abstract then, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that really struck me as well is the kind of course, it is illegal to cross the channel in a small boat. But however, it looked very legal to me. What happened? This sort of seamless transfer, the French Navy bringing a boat out.
Orderly.
Oh, it was just so precise. Everything was, you know, perfect in terms of the transition. The French Navy brings a boat to the middle of the channel. UK border force is waiting there at the edge of the international waters, and they hand them over. And they, you know, what I also witnessed was them hand over life jackets back to the French Navy, who'd loaned them to the migrants on one of these boats.
Extraordinary. Do you think that Sir Keir Starmer will still be Prime Minister in a year's time?
I think he will, yes. And I say that purely because of the sort of machinations of the Labour Party, the complexities, the difficulty with getting rid of him. It's never been done.
They're not like Chelsea Football Club. They're not good at like getting rid of the boss very quickly.
No, exactly. Or like the Tories. You know, the Tories love regicide. They are very prone to it. We've seen that over the last few years. Goodness me, how
they did it to their greatest ever figure, Mrs. Thatcher.
Exactly. They are not frightened of doing that. But Labour's very different, and they would need. I think it's about 80 to 81 MPs to rally round one individual to push this forward. And the likelihood of that happening, the way the Labour Party is sort of so factionalised, I just can't see that happening at the moment. But that doesn't mean you won't see rumblings from Andy Burnham, for example, who's not even an MP. Rumblings from people around Angela Rayner and, you know, supporters of, on the right, sort of Shabana Mahmood and Wes Streeting. I think there will be an outburst of infighting after the local elections in May, and I think we will be, you know, we'll probably be having this conversation then. Is the Prime Minister safe?
So, and then what saves Starmer potentially for the time being is a lack of an obvious unity candidate that the party can get behind.
I think that's certainly one thing, yes, that will help him, and it will be it's difficult to get rid of him. Basically, he's going to pin his hopes in 2026 on sort of he's going to bang the drum for all these measures that they're doing to combat the cost of living, fight, you know, the pain of bills and help the pound in the pocket. Whether or not that cuts through, he's only got 4 months till the local elections, so I think time will tell on that.
Would a change in Prime Minister, which cannot be ruled out this year, see a change in illegal immigration policy?
I think being an optimist, I think we might see some changes come into force, you know, from the last government and from this government. We might see a bit of a knock-on effect with deportations and things like that. We've done lots of deals with France. The hopeful sort of mindset might say we might see that naturally anyway, without any change of Prime Minister. I think it's optimistic to just sort of think changing a Prime Minister is a silver bullet in terms of the small boat crisis. We've had lots of Prime Ministers in the last few years, and it's just getting worse and worse, and nothing's changing.
A likely replacement of Starmer will be to the left of the Prime Minister, is that right? I mean, Shabana Mahmood and Wes Streeting, you mentioned, are potential contenders, but then you've got Angela Rayner, Burnham and others. Of course, Miliband can't be ruled out. So it's just possible that if Starmer goes, the boat crossings could actually increase.
I hadn't really. I mean, it would depend on who's Home Secretary. I mean, I think even those on the soft left of Labour realise that the small boats really cuts through with the public. I think, you know, economy is number one right now, the pound in the pocket, but a number of voters are furious with small boats, and I think even those on the soft left realise this cannot continue.
Well, I think that's right, and I think actually over 50% of all voters supporting all parties want immigration to come down. So it's quite a settled issue by the looks of it. Will Labour ever stop the boats? Derek is in Manchester. Good morning, Derek. Welcome to Talk Breakfast.
Morning, Mark. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, big man, as well. Lovely to have you back on the show. What do you think about this? Do you think that Starmer could turn the tide on the boats?
More chance of plotting sawdust.
Wow.
I mean,
that's a very good way of putting it.
Seriously.
Why have you got no faith that he'll stop the boats? He said he's going to smash the gangs. That's his mandate.
Well, of course he did. And what did Cameron say? He's going to get them down to the tens of thousands. And before that. Since I was a kid, we've had a problem with immigration. And the top and bottom of it is, I think it's orchestrated. I really do. At the end of the day, if you think about it, after the war, we were told that we needed people to come and do the jobs that we didn't want to do and all that, just at the same time that all the troops were coming back from the war. You know, the country had been self-sufficient for years before, during the war, and all of a sudden, when all the lads were coming back from Europe, we were told that we needed people to come in and do jobs that we didn't want to do. What a load of rubbish that was. And it's been a load of rubbish ever since. They've just come up with different excuses time after time. I mean, after that one war thing about not wanting to do those jobs, they come up with the idea that, you're a bit stupid, you lot. You're too thick to do your own job, so we need intelligent people from abroad. You know, I mean, they were talking about the country that formed the Industrial Revolution, that gave most of the inventions to the world.
Yeah.
And then we were suddenly too stupid to do our own jobs. It's been a con all along.
Derek, I can't disagree with you. Happy New Year to you, and I look forward to many calls from you in the days, weeks and months ahead. We've had quite a reaction to a lot of the big stories of the day, including the shocking story of a double murderer who has received a payout of £7,500 because of his human rights, because he's depressed, having been incarcerated in solitary confinement in prison after kidnapping and taking hostage a prison officer. This is a voice note from Ven.
Morning, Mark. It's Wayne from Erdington in Birmingham. Nobody gives a monkeys about the rights of a double killer. Not a... Do you know what, mate? You can't keep kicking the British public in the teeth with this nonsense. They're going to have enough, mate. We're sick of it. Absolutely sick of this nonsense, this crap government. Happy New Year, Mark. Look forward to speaking to you over the year.
Top man.
Have a good one, mate.
Love that. Look forward to speaking to you as well, young man. How about this on Rachel Reeves?
Good morning, Mark. Great to hear you back on Talk Radio. Yeah, I'm in the north of Scotland. It's Clarky here. I've got a question. Are we expected to believe that Rachel from accounts now actually cares about taxi drivers? She doesn't care about pensioners or farmers or the poor or people looking for jobs, but she cares about the black cab drivers. No, it's just another tax raid. It's just getting more money out of Uber, which they deserve to pay it. You know, it's just wrong. Happy New Year anyway to you and all of your gang.
Top man, thank you for that brilliant voice message as well. And how about this? This is one of Sophia's stories. It's an exclusive in the Sun newspaper. GPs hand out 40,000 sick notes a day. Here's a voice note from Michael on that very subject. Take it away, Michael.
Good morning, Mark. It's Mike from Whitland here. Unemployment is bad. There are not that many jobs around. There are a lot of people on the sick who've been on the sick for years who don't intend to work. But unfortunately, the people that are working are being punished for this. This rebranding the 6 notes is ridiculous. But find the work for them. Because in this part of the world, in West Wales, there is no work. And if you can work part-time, you're lucky.
Michael, you are so right about that. I've taken many calls over the last year about people saying, actually, my son, my daughter, they can't get employment. It really isn't that easy. So what a story in the Sun, Sophia Slay. 40,000 sick notes were handed out by GPs and health officials every day during 2025. An estimated 11 million were issued, leading critics to say that the health system is a conveyor belt for worklessness.
It's quite depressing, isn't it? Happy New Year. I
know.
It's a very gloomy figure. It's a very stark, it's a very shocking figure, to be honest. That's a lot of people. I mean, the government sort of say, oh, well, you know, this might be someone off sick already and getting another note. It might be one person with multiple notes. But even so, 40,000. Another thing that struck me in this story was the year before. We haven't got the figures, I think, for 2025, but in 2024, 90% of the notes were issued electronically.
So you don't even have to turn up?
which I think's quite extraordinary. And I think this kind of all speaks to a real big, wider problem in this country, that we have a worklessness crisis and feeding into a benefit trap. You've got millions of people trapped on benefits, particularly young people who, they don't get a first-time job, they go straight onto benefits, and then they're trapped for life most of the time if you go straight on benefits. So I think this speaks to a much, much wider problem. This is obviously something that the government is trying to combat and do something about. However, we're hemorrhaging, I think the figure in this is, economic inactivity due to ill health is costing the UK 212 billion in lost output per year. That is crazy money on top of, the bloated benefits bill and things like this. And I think that's quite frightening. I think that's quite worrying. I mean, you saw earlier last year, the government tried to slash welfare and tried to get it down and get people back into work. It didn't. They were thwarted by backbench Labour MPs. So I think they're going to have a bit of a nightmare on their hand to try and get this bill down anyway.
Most definitely, and I think GPs have a case to answer, handing out these sick notes like confetti, and they've been rebranded as fit notes, which I think is Orwellian doublespeak and an insult to our intelligence, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I hate jargon anyway. As a journalist, I just find it just neuters language.
And it's dishonest, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I don't like that at all. At the end of the day,
irregular immigration.
Yeah. Things like that. It's just unnecessary words, right? We know what a sick note is, and that's what this is. Fit note is almost like putting a positive spin on it, isn't it? It's just insulting the taxpayer, really, who pays for this, right? So I think a lot of people would be quite frustrated. I do understand the argument that they're, that it's difficult to get a job and things like that, but I think sometimes when it's easier to go on to benefits, particularly with young people we're seeing with anxiety and things like this, being signed straight onto benefits, straight out of school, or sixth form nowadays, that of course it's harder to then get a job if you've never had, for example, work experience and things like that.
Most definitely. Well, listen, amazing coverage in The Sun today on a range of top stories. Sophia, come back and see us soon, and Happy New Year to you. Lots of reporting. The news doesn't stop, does it?
No, never.
No, it certainly doesn't. At the news desk of The Sun newspaper, my thanks to Sophia Slay, who is The Sun's excellent Whitehall correspondent. More on the detail of that devastating fire at a nightclub in a Swiss ski resort next.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, have taken that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Now, the Guardian newspaper report that sparklers started a Swiss bar fire that took 40 lives. Investigators believe that fountain sparklers mounted on champagne bottles and held too close to the ceiling sparked the fire that tore through a crowded bar in the Swiss ski resort of Crans-Montana, killing approximately 40 people and injuring more than 100. Just what have the emergency services gone through? What will the legacy be for the families so impacted by this appalling tragedy? Let's get the views of Professor Lucy Easthope, who is an expert on the aftermath of disasters and is the author of Come What May, Life-Changing Lessons for Coping with Crisis. Good morning, Lucy.
Good morning, Mark. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for joining us on Talk Breakfast, and I wish that we could speak under happier circumstances. What about those emergency services who are called upon when a tragedy like this happens? What will they be going through today as they deal with the aftermath?
They're still very much in shock. This is very much the worst case scenario that responders train for, particularly in the fire service. So they're just processing. What you will be seeing is efforts to ensure the support available to them. That's a European and indeed now internationally known and recognised process of support. The incident is only just beginning because the identification now will be so long and so difficult. And often what we remember as we think of the fire service who have had to perform incredible acts of bravery to get people out, but also there's a whole team of response that we very rarely see, and that is the disaster victim identification teams that I support and champion, and they are very rarely at the medal ceremony even known about.
Well, that's right. And of course, there's talk of dentists because, well, you could probably explain why dentists will be required when it comes to the identification of some of the victims.
Yeah, so this is not general dentists. This is a very specialist branch of dentistry called forensic odontology. There is a core team of them. What people don't realise is it's often the same men and women called upon from particularly actually England has a very strong core of association of forensic odontologists. The same men and women that identified people in New Zealand in the fires after the earthquake, identified people at Grenfell, they may well be called on now. And one thing we have seen the Swiss do is call on international resource. Britain can be quite slow to do that, so I really hope our ministers are watching that. Britain tends to want to show the world it can do it itself. I think the Swiss authorities have been brilliant for activating international protocols to get the support they need.
What about those who escaped with their lives? Thank goodness they have managed to get out of the venue, but this will be a lasting legacy for them and a lasting trauma.
Well, one thing we do know actually is the way that they're described and supported and talked about, the way that the media interacts with them has a huge bearing on what happens to them next. Sometimes, for example, people can find it quite a surprise that terms like heroism and describing somebody as a hero can be really unhelpful. We can see that burrow into a particular type of toxic survivor guilt. So one of the things I really pray is that these brave people are allowed the chance to make sense of this and to be supported from this in their own way. We see a lot of torture of them by authorities and the media now.
Yes, indeed. Why would calling somebody that survived a tragedy like this a hero, why does that perpetuate a narrative which helps them, makes it harder to move on?
We're not always sure what becomes those terrible earworms of post-traumatic stress, but one theory I think is that that's an external lens. We're putting the idea of a hero on a person. What they're living with is perhaps the fear that they could have got more people out. They're living with their flashbacks, which take them right back into the moment. So one of the things that I really want us to do, and I've been very clear about this in my writing, is get better at understanding how we can help after these events, understanding the processes, understanding that it's only just beginning. There's so many difficult decisions to be made. This part of Switzerland is a very big area for things like alpine cups and skiing events. And there will be a huge pressure from outside for this place to be looking like it's back to normal. Places are being rebuilt. And what I really want people to understand is the terrible journey after these kind of tragedies, particularly for the families.
And it appears to have been a very young quotient of people, but possibly as young as 14 or 15, that had gone to this venue, slipped past security and managed to get in order to have a New Year's Eve drink. It's a particularly egregious form of grief, is it not, for a parent to lose a child under these circumstances?
I have a particular pain, I think, that hits me when it is this age group. You know, I'm raising young girls, and the idea that you get them to an age where maybe you're starting to see them become who they're going to be and live their lives, it's heartbreaking. I think one of the most difficult things is to see the parents pleading for information. That's something I've seen so many times in my career. And what does seem to be happening, it's not just the Swiss authorities, but the international community are holding those parents in their hearts and their arms. And if we can just continue to do that, what will very sadly happen and necessarily happen in the next few days is there will be lots of discussions of the whys and how it happened. But just always remember, a year from now, 10 years from now, 30 years from now, those families' lives are changed forever, and we just need to hold them in our heart.
What's your professional appraisal of the response of the Swiss authorities so far?
It's so early to know. One thing I've been very impressed with, and I share this on my social media, is their communications, and that's always a very good sign of their strengths. They've also been very clear to balance the multiple challenges. They've emphasised that this is both rescue and then recovery of the deceased. They've emphasised that this is both investigation and a time of mourning. They will be, I think, learning a lot from colleagues on neighbouring areas. Germany, Austria, France have all walked this path in recent years. And my heart is with them, and obviously with the community and with the families. And one of the things I get asked about is, are these lessons, because I'm British, do they translate? They translate around the world. What any other country has learned is very relevant to the Swiss now. So I just hope they get the help they need.
And these young people will that have survived, or indeed, you know, friends of some of the victims in a similar age group, are going to need very targeted and very specific support, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, in recent years, one of the things that I have worried about is that we overwhelm that age group and we tell them what they're supposed to feel. They will often show us different and new ways of grieving. One of the things that I've been very grateful for in my own work in recent years is support from people like child psychiatrists who go in after school shootings. We shouldn't apply a rule book to this year group. One of the things that can shock adults is that young people may mourn in quite unusual ways. You know, they might want to make very noise. They might want to play the tunes they were playing on the night. We learn that children and young people do their own things. Grenfell has taught me that. I write about that in Come What May, and adults need to give them space to do that.
And I just heard on a separate news channel earlier this morning, Lucy, that some of the victims who have survived are going to be in intensive care for 6 to 9 months, that they actually will require over half a year just to be stabilised before they'll even have procedures like skin grafts. I mean, we are talking about the worst imaginable injuries here.
We are. And that's very, very difficult. What we tend to see with these kind of incidents, with this very, very severe burns, is they are still, despite all the challenges of modern medicine and combat medicine, they're incredibly hard to treat. We do see a later death toll from things like infections. The Swiss, have, as I say, have activated every protocol they have, every treaty they have, and I salute the other European countries who've flown in to medevac those patients. That's incredibly hard for families. They will be being taken out of Switzerland to places like Poland, Romania, all offered support. This is a very, very long battle. The other thing that I think really caught my attention is that usually we apply the victim identification to the dead. Here we are also having to apply it to the living. This is the very worst case scenario. And I just hope, as I say, that British ministers are learning from this, because so far the Swiss have done everything we would expect them to do in the worst case scenario.
And briefly, Professor, I know that it can be something of a platitude, but a thought that will be resonating in the days ahead will be never again. Lessons have got to be learnt.
I wish I could say that. I see a fairly sort of concurrent cycle of nightclub fires. I don't see lessons learned in my career. I see hope and I see amazing work done and I see responders learn how to do things, but I don't always see lessons learned. I think the Swiss will pursue this with vigour. You can see that already, but sometimes I challenge whether we learn enough from these terrible events.
Lucy, a privilege to have you on the show. I hope we get to speak again in the near future. Professor Lucy Easthope is an expert on the legacy and aftermath of disasters. She's written so many incredible books, including her latest, which is called Come What May, Life-Changing Lessons for Coping with Crisis. More from Talk Breakfast after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You are listening to Talk Breakfast, and we've got a developing story, which is the Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro, has been captured and flown out of Venezuela. This is according to reports from CNN. This following a US large-scale strike on the capital city of Caracas. This has been confirmed by Donald Trump, that Maduro, who is something of an ideological opponent of Donald Trump, has been captured and flown out of Venezuela. A CNN team earlier witnessed several explosions in Caracas and reported some areas of the city were without electricity. The first blast was recorded at 1:50 a.m. local time earlier today. Donald Trump has repeatedly warned that the US is preparing to take new action against alleged drug trafficking networks in Venezuela. Well, it looks like the US intervention has seen the unseating of the controversial president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro. We'll get you more on that as it comes. Broken Britain, here's a voice note from Elle.
Hi, Mark. I completely agree with the caller before. Firstly, I'm from a forces background and we lived in Crowborough up until the 70s. We moved to Milton Keynes. I bought my house, bought and paid for, lived there for 24 years, had no intention of ever moving. All the HMOs sprung up round me, and me and my two young daughters moved out because it wasn't safe anymore. So I've had the rough end of it. I agree as well about Starmer. He wants to absolutely ruin this country to take us back into Europe. That's his grand plan. He hates us.
There you go. Listen, you're not pulling your punches this morning and you're entitled not to. This network belongs to you. There is no Talk without you, without the viewers and listeners. And what I'll be doing every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. is giving you a platform, representing your concerns and saying it as I see it. Sometimes I'll get it right, sometimes I'll get it wrong, but I'll always be speaking up for the best interests of this country and of the British people, for a British people and a nation that I love. There you go. Listen, folks, I tell you what I also love is a bit of darts. It's a marvellous sport, isn't it? And I think it works great on telly, and it's a great night out if you're actually there. Well, the teen sensation Luke Littler is in the final. Let's get a bit more on this from a very important man within the world of darts. He's the chief executive of the PDC, Matt Porter. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, Mark.
Listen, what a moment in the darts calendar.
Yeah, I think this is the pinnacle of our year. Although we're only 3 days in, this is the day that people who don't follow darts throughout the year will still pay interest in, and it's going to get millions of TV viewers and headlines around the world. So it's going to be an exciting evening.
Well, the thing about darts, it is a brilliant spectator sport, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the atmosphere that makes it. You know, the players go up there and perform to the best of their ability, but especially at this time of year, people go for the party, they go for the occasion. It's quite unique amongst sporting events in that people aren't overly preoccupied with the result. You know, they're going for the occasion, they're going for the social, the day out, and they're going to watch top-class dart players. So if the player that they like loses, you don't see many people in tears.
No, most definitely not. Although you said, obviously, you're quite right. It's a great night out. You're not too worried about who wins. But they will be tonight because we've got an iconic young Brit in Luke Littler.
Yeah, I mean, Luke's in his third final in 3 years, which as an 18-year-old is absolutely unprecedented. And he's playing a young Dutchman, 23-year-old Jan van Veen. I mean, 2 years ago, this was our World Youth Championship final.
Wow.
So it shows the strength of young talent in the sport, that the pair of them have made their way to the top of the senior rankings so quickly.
Has it become a young men's game, would you say, Matt?
It has, yeah. I mean, the pressures on the players now, the amount of travel, the amount of time you spend at events and other commitments, it's a lot. You know, you listen to Gary Anderson, who made the semi-finals yesterday at the age of 55, and Gary's longevity is to his immense credit, but he will tell you how tiring it is, and the rigours of the sport are not, you know, not for him on a weekly basis anymore, because it's just too much, and the sport has grown to a level now where you need to be of that age profile, and you need to look after yourself. You have to prioritise your well-being, physical and mental, and you have to prioritise your diary, because otherwise it will just get too much for you.
How much does alcohol feature for the athletes these days?
No, I mean, look, the game's changed, you know, just based on what I've just said then. You know, it's young people playing, that you just can't do it.
So is it all
Diet
Diet Coke and Sprite and all the rest of it?
Well, yeah, Diet Coke, Sprite, water, orange juice, Red Bull, whatever you want.
But
you
it's
know?
not.
I mean,
It's
look,
not pints and pints of Carlsberg anymore.
No, I mean the days of that are just behind them, because they wouldn't be able to cope with the demands of the sport if they were going up there in the same way that players of the 80s and before were.
Yeah. Well, I did a show with Bradley Wiggins, Matt, called The Jump, right? A winter sports show on Channel 4. The most dangerous show on TV, apparently. Anyway, I needed the money. But look, story of my life. Basically, he told me that when he was a top-level cyclist, when they were on the tour and everything, they would all get smashed in the evening, okay? So they're like basically the race all day, and then they'd be in the bar at night. He said, but the reason why we could do it is because everyone was on the beers. And that's the point about professional sport. You have to work with the lowest common denominator. And if your rival is on the Red Bulls and not the beers, then you've got to be as well.
Yeah, look, the standard is of a level now where the smallest of margins will make a difference. So you can't risk your own achievements just for the sake of a bit of a social activity. You know, I don't know what happens in the world of cycling based on the number of failed doping tests they have. It sounds like they're on more than just beers, but that's not for me to say. You know, it's you know, in darts now, players have to be professional.
Matthew, what about the cash, the Spondulicos? What is the prize money for the winner this weekend?
So the winner tonight will win £1 million.
I mean, that's an extraordinary figure, isn't it?
Well, that's the level that the sport's at now. You know, when you talk about respect and credibility, then you can get that when you're offering prize money at that level. Next year, or this year rather, 2026, we'll pay out £25 million in total prize money, globally. And this tournament alone is £5 million across its 128 players. So, as I say, it just shows you the level that the sport's got to.
I've always loved darts. It is an incredibly fine-tuned sport. The pressure on the players is brutal. It's gladiatorial. There's nowhere to hide. And it's just a tremendous skill. Is there still snobbery around the sport, would you say, Matt?
Less so. I mean, you've shown me a little bit of it in the last couple of minutes, which is fine.
I'm in trouble now.
People do. You know, that it's easy to poke fun at darts, isn't it? You know, it's not a sport that is particularly difficult for some people to laugh at. You know, but that's changed over the generations. You know, we sell more tickets than a lot of other sports. We get more TV ratings than any other sport on Sky, except for football. You know, our numbers stack up for themselves, and our players deserve the credibility that they get.
And it works really well on the box, doesn't it? Because you've got that split screen of the darts player, the competitor, and then the board itself. And I don't know who the genius was that came up with the idea of zooming in when you're on a 180.
Yeah, I mean, that was, we talk about that, and I think that goes back to the days when people watched on a 14-inch TV, and they needed to, and the resolution wasn't as high as now, and they needed to see whether the dart was going to go in, and obviously that created the tension by zooming in. But you perhaps don't need it as much now in the days of ultra high definition and people watching on 65-inch screens, but it still creates that drama.
Well, listen, it's going to be massive tonight, and darts is basically getting bigger every year. That is the direction of travel, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in the mainstream now. You know, as I say, the World Championship is the event that transcends the sport, but plenty of our other events, the Premier League, the Match Play, Grand Slam, etc., they're all well in the public consciousness. And, you know, I think it's testimony and credit to the players for what they've delivered over the last few years that the public know who they are now, not just here in the UK, but around Europe and the wider world.
And as the chief executive of the PDC, you must be particularly thrilled with Luke Littler, because what he's done is he's just brought further attention to the sport, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has, and particularly amongst the younger generation of fans, you know, people who wouldn't have otherwise engaged with darts, people who get their news and information first and foremost on social media. You know, that's Luke's demographic, that's his wheelhouse, you know, and he can connect with people of that generation, you know, much more authentically and naturally than others can.
Is there a danger that it's too much for such a young guy? You know, he's 18 now, and I know he's a great talent and a very popular personality, but are you worried that he's overexposed, that he's under too much pressure?
No, look, we've had this for the last couple of years, and particularly when he was under 18, there was a huge amount of attention on the duty of care for him. You know, he's got a good family around him, good management. He's recently changed management, but got equally good management now. So, you know, Luke's got composure, he's got maturity, he's shown that he can deal with the pressure. And actually, even when he may make the odd barbed comment, he knows what he's doing. He's in control of the situation. You know, so I think it's a testimony to him as an individual that at that tender age he can act in such a mature way. You know, and clearly we will still always, as we will with every player, take a consideration for their duty of care. But Luke's very capable of standing on his own 2 feet.
Lovely to talk to you, Matt. Thank you for joining us.
You too, Mark. All the best.
Well, you too. Hope goes really well tonight. Matt Porter is the chief executive of the PDC. Is it on the BBC or something? Dean Spencer, producer of the show. Have a look up, see where people can actually, if they haven't got tickets for the darts, where they can watch it, because I think it is a great spectacle, I've got to say. It's on Sky Sports. There you go. Listen, a very, very quick couple of voice notes. This one, I spoke earlier to Jim Dale, meteorologist, who had a bit of a rant about Reform UK and climate change. This is Kev.
Well, morning, Mark. Kevin from Corringham here. You invite Jim Dale on to talk about the weather, and he turns it into a dig at Reform and Nigel Farage. You just couldn't make it up, could you? Eh? Bless him.
There you go, Kev. I will say I'm really glad for your voice note, because lots of you have messaged me saying that they were very irritated by Jim Dale's intervention on the issue of climate change and the suggestion that Reform UK are in denial of it. I don't think that's the case. I think that what they've said is that they would handle climate change differently to the current administration. And what about this on Iran? Is the world a safer place under Donald Trump? This is Ash.
Hi, Mark. Ash from Preston. The people of Iran are not on the streets just because of the economy. They're on the streets because they want rid of the Ayatollah. They want rid of the oppressive Islamic regime. That's why they're on the streets. Stop peddling the line that it's just about the economy. It's not.
Brilliant, Ash. I stand corrected. Thank you for that. That's something that's going to be a theme of this show for the whole of 2026. If you agree with me, give me a call. Tell me why. If you disagree, or if I've got something wrong and you want to have an argument and a right old ding-dong, then my door is open. 0344 499 1000. This is going to be a conversation for the next year, every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And your voice is much more important than mine, because without you, there is no talk. Quick text message that caught my eye. So many messages this morning. So hard to keep up. Thank you for the interaction. This is from Tim, who says, "Good morning, Mark. I'm glad that your politics guest had a great Christmas, because we did not. I got made redundant as my employer could not afford me anymore after the changes." Now, Tim, I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because I get so cross about this government, whose policies I consider to be wicked, because of the real world consequences. You've got the workers' rights package, which means that there will be less job opportunities for young people and more unemployment. You've got the increase in minimum wage, which spikes inflation, which is a tax on everyone. You've got the brain drain and wealth creators running for the hills, which means less investment, less GDP, more debt. And we, the public, are the ones that pick up the pieces. And Tim, your message this morning represents exactly why I get up in the morning, get the kettle on, have a cup of coffee and go on the radio, is because I've got to be here to give you a voice and just to demonstrate to this horribly incompetent Labour government that their policies are hurting the British people. And Tim is one of just many whose livelihood and quality of life has been impacted by the policies of this Labour government, and I'll be using this platform to call it out. Tim, I wish you every good fortune in getting another position. More power to you, big man. Stay in touch and let me know how you get on. You can even give me a call in the weeks ahead. Maybe we can help you find something. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk Breakfast.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, have taken that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, something that we'll definitely be endeavouring to do in the next 12 months is to have a laugh and a smile as well. It is the weekend after all, and we'll be doing so every Saturday in the company of Virgin Radio star Steve Denyer, who's going to be looking at some of the big TV moments of the year gone by. Steve, hello and welcome back.
Hello, Happy New Year to you.
Great stint, Happy New Year to you. Great stint on Virgin Radio. I was away on my hollybobs and I put you on the radio on Christmas morning. Great show, in for Chris Evans for the best part of 2 weeks.
Thank you, it's been so much fun. It's been so... Chris is back on Monday.
Great.
So I do the show before him. It's like the baby breakfast that leads up to Chris and everything you need to know, nice and early. We're live at 5 every morning.
Well, that's great. So basically it's one lovely big juicy show, right?
Yeah,
From
exactly.
5 all the way through.
Everything you need to know.
Seamless.
Everything from the sport to what's on to all the WhatsApps we get. You know, people listening all around the world at that time because they want a little slice of the UK. So very, very much looking forward to getting cracking on with it. If we look back at the Christmas ratings, they were the lowest ever.
Is that right?
Just wanted to tell you about it. You know, we've spoken before about specials on Christmas Day. The EastEnders special in '86 got, what was it like? We said 30 million, didn't we?
Yeah.
The most they managed to achieve this year, Strictly got 4.3 million.
4.3, that's measly, isn't it?
Isn't
I
it?
mean, Strictly, a decade ago, Strictly was getting 10, 11.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even on Christmas.
Absolutely. And I felt that they didn't really give it a go. I felt that, you know, they repeated that Gavin and Stacey finale. The best thing that was on was BBC Two. They had this Jaws at 50 documentary, which I'd seen before, but I ended up watching it again because it's so good. But that was there weren't a lot of highlights. We begin this year with The Traitors. The Civilian.
Which is
Civilian
a
episode.
massive hit for BBC, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, take a look. This is where all the effort's gone. We've got the Traitors trailer. Just a couple of seconds. Have a look at this. It's massive.
This is twisted.
Just the way I like it. Sleep well, if you can.
Now, for those that don't know, what is the sort of broad format of the show?
So you've got 22 civilians, okay, and there's this year a secret fourth traitor, okay, in a cloak. And it's all going on. It's a bit like, you know, when you see the contestants for The Apprentice and you see their faces and they've just been leaked the other day, and you kind of look at them and you go, okay, I've got my eyes on that person. You can't trust anybody.
Yeah.
Okay. There's faithfuls, there's traitors, and it's all to play for. And it's hard to predict. We're only a couple of episodes in. The first episode got 6.4 million people. So already, I think the BBC have thought, okay, let's hold off the Christmas schedule. Let's go big in the new year. This is going to be one of the big new shows of the year. And if you haven't seen it, watch it, because it's really good.
So it's essentially a reality show in which you have to work out who the dodgy so-and-so is, who the liar is.
Exactly.
Who the bad guy
But it's
or
not
woman
that
is.
easy. There are twists and turns.
And the previous one was the celebrity version, which was won by Alan Carr, the comedian.
Which was massive. So off the back of that, Alan Carr has seemingly got all of the roles being offered, apart from James Bond. I think that's the only one, but I'd like to see it. But it's making massive stars. And it's interesting. It was the first, you know, like back in the day, Celebrity Big Brother, they got the very big names. I think people are quite scared of that show. So this is the big new show that the agents are telling their talents, go on this show. You can trust this show, you know. So it's really interesting.
Which version is better, would you say, the celeb or the normal, you know, regular people one?
Well, I mean, I love the celebrity version because I love the people who are in it. There was a great mix of people, really big stars. You know, Stephen Fry, Jonathan Ross.
Biggest stars in the country.
Exactly that. They really managed to smash it. I think the civilian version will be a slow burner. I know we haven't got a lot of time. If I wish you by some of the other things, Stranger Things managed to crash Netflix. Another show, again, that lots of people seemingly are watching at the same time, and they're watching with other people. So it's the #1 show.
And when you say crash, what, just mean a smash hit?
Yeah, well, no, so they put it on at 1 o'clock in the morning, our time.
The new
Day,
season.
The final episode.
Ooh.
So they've been drip feeding this final series, and it completely crashed Netflix. And
so
nobody could
Netflix
watch
didn't work?
It didn't work for about 40 minutes.
That would have cost them a few quid.
It really would. Or maybe that happened deliberately. Call me a cynic, I don't know. You know, we'll look into that. But again, another big show. When we look back, I want you to look forward, actually, to this year and big things on telly. There's a great Bowie documentary just tonight that's going to go on at 10 o'clock. It's called Bowie, the Final Chapter. And it's about Bowie in the 90s. And it's incredible. It's like Bowie lost his confidence. Bowie didn't want to do Glastonbury in year 2000 because he said, I'm not sure I'm relevant anymore. He wasn't up for it. He turned up on the big day with a sore throat, and they just said, just do what you can. And it went down to be one of the most iconic performances at Glastonbury. So it's a snapshot of the star and how he was just before he made that final album. So that's at 10 tonight.
So this was when he was... Did he know that he was dying when he did that gig?
So he was... Publicly, we didn't know about that, but there's parts of this documentary tonight when he was about to start chemotherapy.
Wow, and he was a brave man, and it's amazing because he wrote that album, recorded it whilst sort of dying, and wrote songs about his death, which came out following his passing.
And we didn't know when we first heard those songs. Do you remember, you know...
I remember the video with him, was he in a morgue or something?
Yeah.
Or at least in a hospital bed.
Yeah.
It was a very, very dark video.
That was the final video.
With him prophesying his passing. And then it's released on, when he passed, which of course was all his plans.
Yeah.
That's how much of an iconoclast he is. He choreographed his own death.
Yeah, we didn't know anything about that until the Monday. Remember, people celebrated on the Friday's birthday, and on that Monday back in 2016, all those years, to almost the date, we learnt of his passing. So that's on tonight. Dear England is coming out later on this year. This is the Gareth Southgate. Joseph Fiennes playing Gareth Southgate, and the story, his story of being, you know, the iconic, legendary England manager.
And those biopics, they go down very well, don't they? We had sort of Frost Nixon, we had The Damned United, which was the Brian Clough
which was
film.
great, wasn't it?
Really
I love
great
that.
movie. Even if you don't like
loved
football, it was incredible.
Yeah, exactly. As far as it's interesting, you mentioned biopics. It's going to be another big year. Last year, a few people said, you know, we had the Bruce Springsteen, we had the Bob Dylan one. They weren't great.
I thought the Dylan one was boring.
They were quite dull. Yeah, I think you had to be an Uber fan to enjoy either of those. This year, we've got this Michael Jackson one, played by Michael Jackson's nephew, Jafar. Should we have a look? I've got the trailer.
Yeah, love to.
30 seconds. It's well worth a peek.
Q. Can you lower the lights for me, please?
Okay. But remember, in here, keep those feet still, my man.
Peter Cardwell's in the studio doing the moonwalk, which is very impressive.
That was impressive.
Can I just say, I totally disagree with you on the Bob Dylan film. I loved it. I absolutely
know
loved
half the people I know loved it.
Yeah.
Well, I must say, Timothy's acting was incredible, and you know, he stole the show. However,
was there another reason you liked his acting?
I just think he's an incredibly talented young man who's going to go far.
Timothy Chalamet. I'd rather watch Christopher Timothy. That's an old reference for you.
Where did that come
creatures,
from?
great and small.
But you know, I just thought that the film wasn't that great, but the acting was amazing.
Yeah.
And this